the perfect home on the planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276. She also broke the rules. Music started, and it seemed to float over from the other side of the valley. Shuang Tian'an squatted down, washed his hands, and scooped water on his boots. Qi Changgong looked at Shuang Tian'an's back. He was neither weak nor fancy, humble, gentle, sincere, responsible. Such descriptions were just right for the people living by the stream. Even Gu Jie liked to be with him when he was doing his homework. With Deputy Director Shuang around, there was absolutely no need to worry about the robots malfunctioning outside, and Gu Jie was always full of trust in Shuang Tian'an. You know, trust is the most basic feedback that people like them can give to their companions, and it is also the most difficult to give at first, and the hardest to take back after giving it. Qi Changgong watched Shuang Tian'an's movements quietly amid the murmuring music, but he couldn't understand, how could that ferocious-looking female boss find such a gentle person? Could her own vision be wiser than his old man's? Oh my. Qi Changgong changed his mind and realized that he had accidentally disgraced himself. The music suddenly became high-pitched. The people by the stream turned their heads and looked back. Qi Changgong didn't know where the change came from, so he followed Shuang Tian'an's line of sight and raised his eyebrows to look at the weeds at the edge of the stone beach. He sat high up and could see clearly a woman in a pink skirt, carrying a bow and a bag, looking up at the sky in the vast grass. I'm here, I'm here." The singing was loud and clear, as if it would cut through the sky. Although it was a recorded male voice, she was also singing. After she finished singing, she turned around and hurriedly walked through the grass, and saw Shuang Tian'an on the stone beach. When Shuang Tian'an smiled, the music stopped. But she didn't stop, and continued to cross the stone beach. Qi Changgong saw Shuang Jishan, Xiao Duan, and the robot emerge from the corners and run towards them. At the same time, he did not miss Shuang Tian'an standing up with a smile on his face, shaking his finger, and pointing diagonally in front of him, as if saying something. Of course he also saw that the person in the pink skirt stopped and turned around to pick up a piece of clothing on the ground. The flour cake was choking. "There is water, don't come over." Shuang Tian'an was afraid that Feiyu would come closer, so he reminded her again. This time he squatted in the water to wash his hands and shoes. The stream water was up to his ankles. But it was not like the previous time when Xiao Duan was kind enough to only leave him to sit at the edge of the rocky beach where the stream water extended. Feiyu exclaimed, "Is it cold? Do you want a scarf?" It was the beginning of spring, and she asked Shuang Tian'an to wash his hands in the mountain stream for so long. She quickly untied the scarf and was about to give it to him to wipe his hands. The bow and bag on her shoulder hung down her arm. No, no, no. Shuang Tian'an hurriedly stopped her, and helped her take off the bow and bag, and still wrapped the scarf around her. Perfect, perfect. Shuang Jishan's face was filled with joy. "Old Xiao, tell the next group to get ready. Sister Shuang, go home and practice that line. It should convey a profound and lofty artistic conception, yet be majestic and exciting, stirring the blood. Deputy Director Shuang, you should sing softly, making the o-o-o sound restrained and soul-stirring. It's settled now. You're responsible for the deep affection." "Perfect, perfect." Shuang Tian'an and Fei Zai looked at each other. Shuang Jishan waved at them and turned to chase Xiao Duan. Old Xiao, I have another idea. Write it down for me. After each group finishes, call the first two groups down and I'll revise it for them." "Are we done?" Shuang Tian'an whispered. "I thought Coach Shuang wanted us to do it again. He's busy right now, brainstorming." Fei Zai raised her hand as if holding her head. Shuang Tian'an suddenly laughed and subconsciously looked behind her. Fortunately, Shuang Jishan had already walked away. "Okay, didn't he say it was perfect?" Feiyu was also happy, although she knew that Shuang Jishan's repeated perfection was more likely a compliment to the newly upgraded blockbuster version he had conceived in his mind. "Whatever, let's stop here for today, go back and practice." She raised her chin and headed towards the hillside. "Let's go sit down." She was finally relieved. After Shuang Tian'an and she exchanged this, they quickly reached perfection. This meant that her smiling micro-expressions would no longer be difficult, and Shuang Tian'an would figure out how to express deep affection. Singing should be grand and majestic, and you can do it by raising your voice. It is much easier than a silent smile that is both surprising and affectionate. Qi Changgong watched the two of them walking up the hill together. Shuang Tanan had previously taken all her clothes and now took out his coat, shook it out, turned his head and spoke to her, as if he wanted to give it to her, but she shook her head. Huh? Deputy Director Shang and his wife got it done in one try, Gujia asked enviously. Why couldn't I get it done after several tries? Shang Bei and his wife had already rehearsed it several times long before you came, Feng Huer explained with a giggle. Sir, you missed it, you didn't see it. Qi Changgong's mind skipped a beat as a thought crossed his mind. Of course he had seen her in his information, the wedding date was clearly written. He was surprised at how quickly she'd broken off the engagement and gotten married. He calculated that it had only been a year, and the man she'd found wasn't bad either. He was even a classmate from the same college. Could it be, she'd cheated, too? But she didn't say. He said it, and he paid the price. Take a look at the perfect poem, post, content, and book. What happened to that flour cake? After eating it, the mountain breeze made my stomach feel cold. Was it indigestion? Qi Changgong felt suffocated. If that were the case, he would have paid the money he earned from selling his body for 15 years to buy his freedom, and she would not blush at all. If the lawyer he hired was not professional, the mom and family fortune left to him by his grandfather, and the dowry book that his mother had cried and begged him to take over in order to keep him, would all have been swindled away by her. She scolded him for having no public or private morals. Qi Changgong took advantage of the mess on the slope and the stream side to glance at the two people sitting next to each other not far away. His eyes were sharp. What can be done in a year? After the divorce lawsuit, he immediately met someone new, fell in love, and got married without stopping? It takes no time to get to know someone, it takes no time to understand someone, and it takes no time to fall in love? Qi Changgong calculated his own case and then looked at the brothers around him. None of them were so quick. Besides, he was really lucky in love. He got to know someone quickly and fell in love quickly. Wouldn't it take at least a few months to prepare for the wedding? Qi Changgong knew that even though Miss Yan no longer had direct relatives, she was still a person like him and would never want her wedding to be a disaster. So, would a year be enough to complete all these ceremonies, plus the necessary steps of getting to know each other? Crucially, these two were still deeply in love. Qi Changgong thought back to the night Feiyu barged into his office, angrily questioning his grandfather and then, without any respect for her manners, tearing him apart, accusing him of everything her husband had done on the road, threatening to kill him. Then he thought of Shuang Tanan sitting alone in the hospital lobby late at night, waiting for her to visit. Well, there was no need to think about the distant future. Just looking at their recent encounter by the river, he could see how deeply in love they were. How did Feng Huer, the duty assistant, explain the plot? In this section, we want to express the feelings of the conscripts, who support each other and work together. Without feelings, could the eldest daughter of the Yan family willingly come to this barren and cold place, squeezed into a community dome that was probably smaller than the bathroom in her boudoir? Support each other and work together? Qi Changgong didn't believe it. After all, even those who have feelings may not be willing to come. He withdrew his gaze from the small stool. He lowered his brows and thought, it is impossible to do so much in a year, and it is impossible to cultivate such a good emotional foundation. There is only one possibility. She also broke the rules in advance. But she didn't say it. When he took the initiative to say it, she played it right on her wish list, and even asked him to compensate. Chapter 277 The continuation of the fairy couple. After the rehearsal in the Mulala Hills, Shuang Tanan and Feiyu hadn't received any official notice to appear on screen for a long time. Mrs. Yin, Feng Huer, had, on Shang Jisheng's orders, visited Shang Shuang's dome several times during her free time after get-off work, whispering with Feiyu about choosing clothes. If Yin Dechen was free after get-off work and had learned beforehand that Shuang Tanan wasn't out on duty, he would send Feng Huer over and chat with Shuang Tanan. Two men in the house usually couldn't stay together. The house was too small, squeezed with two women, and sometimes even a robot came along to take Feiyu's measurements. Even with a large bed deformed, the house still seemed cramped. Shuang Tanan would help pour out some candy, put Feiyu and Feng Huer inside, and discuss clothing styles while he and Yin Dechen sat on the cloud blue stone in the courtyard. Spring was starting to look more and more like spring. The evening breeze blew in from the western wilderness, warm and faintly mixed with the natural fragrance of flowers. Tanan, the view from your spot is quite nice, Yin Dechen pointed at the wilderness. When we first came down, it was freezing cold here. I even told Xiaohu that yours was the farthest out among the others, a bit desolate, and would rather be more comfortable among the crowds. Now it seems the scenery is the best here, Shang Tenin smiled, gazing westward. The approaching sunset painted the sky shades of blue and red, illuminating the long gaps in the cliffs with a dark, luminous glow. The ancient rock faces looked as if painted with the richest oil paint, and the rugged rock ledges, from afar, resembled a painting pasted on the sky. On the horizon, the wild flowers and plants of all kinds bloomed and swayed, all the way to the western wall of his house. When there's no thunderstorm, the view is indeed quite nice, Shang Tenin agreed. He and Feiyu both enjoyed this dusk. With the arrival of spring in Shilin Highlands, the weather grew warmer, and the neighbors' activities in their yards increased, inevitably leading to a surge in outdoor activity in this section. As long as the residents didn't have any community matters to attend to, Feiyu would sit by the west wall and enjoy the spring breeze. Shang Tenin would often sit with her, and they witnessed this peaceful scene countless times. Feng Huo, overhearing the two men chatting about the scenery from inside, smiled softly and stole a glance out the west window of Feiyu's house. "Oh, Brother Qiyong is so round and rosy," Yin Dechen teased. "You just realized Brother Qiyong is so round and rosy," he laughed. "Xiaohu has been busy lately, barely looking at the sky. She likes visiting people. My house is right in the middle, with people on both sides, so it's convenient for her to go anywhere." Feng Huo raised her eyebrows and glared at Yin Dechen fiercely, but seeing Shang Tenin also smiling, she felt embarrassed to scold her husband. She turned back and saw Feiyu with a slight smile on her face. She sat beside a table covered with women's clothing, her head tilted, still carefully sketching. Her calm and gentle appearance made her, who is always so bold, envy her a little. The afterglow of Brother Qiyong's rays shone in through the west window of the house, casting a ray of light on the large table in the middle of the room, a warm red and yellow hue that perfectly reflected a light blue pleated skirt. The room was absolutely beautiful. Feng Huo glanced up briefly at Shang Tenin, thinking to herself, "Mr. Shang is truly a gentle gentleman. I've never seen him speak loudly about Feiyu, let alone tease his wife in public. These two are always soft-spoken. From Kaolichi to Shilin City, it seems they can forever maintain their immortal state of being a couple, unburdened by the mundane world of daily necessities." "Okay, Sister Yin, take a look at my sketch." Feiyu handed the file over. Feng Huo regained consciousness, took a look at the sketch, and instantly forgot her curiosity about other people's lives. "Oh, this is a long coat and breeches. Coach Shuang wants a skirt, it's this long, so it must be a skirt," Feiyu argued. Although Shang Jishin hadn't gathered them together for face-to-face guidance recently, he was still following up on every detail of the promotional video project. His meticulous attitude was a bit irritating for Feiyu, who considered herself a dedicated and conscientious person. Feng Huo had initially come to her house, saying she was helping her pick out a suitable formal dress for a trip abroad. That same day, Shang Tenin pulled her Momang suitcase out from under the bed, and Feng Huo exclaimed how beautiful her dresses were. She was spoiled for choice, choosing from left to right. Feng Huo worked quickly and diligently, choosing a dress for Feiyu to wear at home. She then took her out to the wild flowers of the Western Wall wilderness, saying it would better suit a mood. She then sent a live video of the dress to Shang Jishin. Shang Jishin shook his head in denial. That same day, Feng Huo asked her to try on all the dresses in her wardrobe, but she rejected them all. When Feng Huo was about to leave, Feiyu couldn't wait to see her off. It was truly terrifying. Later, Feng Huo returned with Shang Jishin's latest guidance. A dress should combine heroic spirit with gentle beauty. Feiyu now understood Shang Jishin's requirements for everything related to art, a combination of both. For example, when he asked her to sing, she wanted it to be both profound and majestic. Shang Tenin was told to hum, subduing his voice while simultaneously delivering a soul-stirring performance. God knows how arduous their practice was. Every evening after work, they'd hide outside the west wall and sing out into the wilderness, lest the neighbors overhear them. The song wasn't perfect, and then there were the worries of clothing. Still, there were two requirements, heroic and graceful, yet gentle and beautiful. Understanding Shang Jishin's dual needs didn't mean she'd found a way to achieve them. Feiyu and Feng Huo summoned the specialized robots from both communities, equipped with high-end clothing design and customization systems, and entered the keywords, heroic and graceful. The robots, referencing the fabric inventory of the property management department, immediately offered 10 designs, guaranteed to be ready for immediate production. But Xiong Jishan rejected all of them. Director Shuang's ideas haven't been flowing smoothly lately. The location outside the city is stuck, Feng Huer said. Traveling the Luo and Gai continent without protective clothing was a serious scientific undertaking, and several departments were working day and night to determine its feasibility. But time slipped by, and the 6-month deadline was almost up. It would be unacceptable if the Chuxiu departed without the planned promotional film. Xiong Jishan was reportedly so anxious lately that he was experiencing symptoms of internal heat, and he'd visited Chun Yuanxiao. With a project leader acting this way, the subordinates had to be even more diligent. Today was Feng Huer's third visit regarding clothing. She had a new approach, arriving at Fixu's house with a large, colorful bag of clothing, borrowed from friends, colleagues, and friends of colleagues. Let's learn from others and find inspiration in clothing from all over the world. So, Fixu's large table was covered with bizarre costumes from across the alliance. Fixu had no other options, so she used the little knowledge she'd learned about dress sense in her ladies' class, meticulously sketching out a design based on the collars of one brand and the lapels of another. This was already the third one. Feng Huer had also thought of 2 by herself and sent them to Xiong Jishan. I don't know if he was still angry, as he sent one back after another, and he didn't like any of them. Feiyu glanced at the sky through the west window and prepared to call it a day. I'm not in a good mood, she said matter-of-factly. I don't have any more inspiration. Feng Huer saw Feiyu folding the clothes, and while helping her fold them, she sighed. What should I do? There is no final draft today. Are you guys ready? Xiong Tannen walked in, looked at the table full of clothes and the 2 people, and asked with a smile. No. Feng Huer was very distressed. Wow, the work of your propaganda department is too demanding, isn't it? You've designed a piece of clothing several times and it's still not good enough, Yin Decheng exclaimed. No mistakes. Xiong Tannen was curious. What do the designs look like? What's wrong with them? Feiyu passed it to him. Xiong Tannen took a quick look and pointed at the last pair of long coats and breeches. I think this is pretty good. With long sleeves and long pants, it provides a high degree of protection in the wild. You don't understand, none of you. Feng Huer shook her head. We want beauty, elegance, heroic spirit, and gentleness. Yin Decheng was shocked. So many requirements. If it really doesn't work, ask your director Shuang to make a sample first, and we can copy it. Feng Huer glared. She worked very hard in the propaganda department. If the harsh conditions here were not counted, this job at Luoyang was even more comfortable for her than her time back home. But she didn't want her husband to complain, even if it was to help her. I'll go to the department to brainstorm and strive to get a draft out next time, she vowed, full of energy. Feiyu nodded, actually sharing Yin Decheng's idea. Okay, whatever you want, I'll wear it then, she said. Xiong Tannen glanced at her sideways, hiding a smile. After escorting the Yin couple out of the yard, Xiong Tannen turned around and saw Fixu almost stepping into the room. She moved so quickly that the big bed was about to hiss and deform. I need to rest. I'm running out of inspiration, Fixu sighed. I won't practice singing anymore. He smiled and helped put the uneaten candies back into the jar, comforting her. Don't worry, I'm not worried. Fixu sat down at the head of the bed, feeling the warm and soft bedding, and her muscles and bones relaxed. This time she answered calmly. After the actual location is finalized and we need to officially leave the country, all the wavering requirements will be quickly resolved. Xiong Tannen laughed even more. He didn't interrupt Fixu and Feng Huer when they were working, so he reminded them, try to wear long sleeves and long pants. I'll also tell Coach Shuang that safety is always the top priority when shooting outdoors, and everything else is secondary. He's getting angry. Fixu glanced at Xiong Tannen, meaning to ask him to have pity on Xiong Jishan. Under the west window, Xiong Tannen couldn't help laughing. Chapter 278 Early Morning Courtyard. After rigorous deliberations, the Luo and Command, along with the Science, Health, and Environmental Safety departments, issued a notice to the Propaganda Department on a bright spring afternoon. Xiong Jishan practically leaped for joy. We can go out now, he said, typing in the contact numbers of everyone on the promotional film project team. Hurry and assemble. Fixu's new outfit had indeed been finalized overnight. The next day, when she woke up, the community service robot was already waiting outside the courtyard, urging her to try it on. The dress was a light gray with a high collar, narrow sleeves, a waistband, and a flowing, knee-length skirt. The clothing instructions specifically required high black protective boots, perfectly embracing both gentle beauty and heroic spirit. The bundle also contained a skin-colored, tight-fitting protective jumpsuit. Everyone involved in the filming of the promotional video received a set of clothing. Originally designed by the Logistics Department's Daily Supplies Division for the next field acclimatization phase, this thin, semi-casual, semi-protective outfit was produced ahead of time for Xiang Jisheng's major project after review by experts from the Roundhouse Command, the Science Department, the Health Department, and the Environmental Safety Department. Regardless of the constant pressure from Xiang Jisheng, the Daily Supplies Division finally satisfied him before his big day. Now that Xiang Jisheng had barely made it through the hurdle of wearing protective clothing for exposure in the field, he was like a relentless drill, drilling away at something else. There were so many other considerations for the live-action performance, including the various robots the project team needed, including those for environmental exploration, escorts, demonstrations, and logistical support. He lamented the lack of everything, including his own limited assistance and the scarcity of all the necessary supplies. Feiyu was trying on clothes inside, while Shuang Tianan waited for her outside in the courtyard, practicing a set of boxing techniques. Before she could even finish her morning exercise, she received a video message from Feng Huar. "Brother Shuang, good morning." Feng Huar didn't even have time for any more pleasantries before she started talking. "Brother Shuang, have you seen the list I sent? Can you allocate everything on it to us?" "Sure," Shuang Tianan said with a smile. Feng Huar breathed a sigh of relief. It was clear that things hadn't been going smoothly elsewhere, but now, with Shuang Tianan, they had finally completed something. "Brother Shuang, thank you so much," she was smiling. Since the two families were close, she didn't bother to be polite. "Brother Shuang, when you go outside later, can you help us take care of those robots in case they break down?" "Oh, a robot manager from our propaganda department will also go with us. We brought too many things, and he is also in charge of various props. I'm afraid he can't handle it all by himself." "Okay, no problem," Shuang Tianan said readily. "Where's Feiyu?" Feng Huar said embarrassedly again. "I actually wanted Feiyu to help us keep an eye on the robots, especially those serving the family members. Our robot manager is a man, and if there is a malfunction on site, it might not be very convenient." "Of course, there usually won't be any malfunctions. She's getting dressed," Shuang Tianan smiled. "I'll talk to her later. She'll help. I guess she was just getting dressed, so I didn't call her on video." "How is it? Does the dress look good?" "Not yet." "Do you want her to send you a video later?" "No, there's no time to make changes. If there's a problem with the size, just ask the robot that delivers the clothes to make changes on the spot, and don't change the pattern." Feng Huar hurried. "Brother Shuang, that's it. Please take care of the robots, I'll go and confirm other matters." Shuang Tianan said okay, looked at the sky, which was pale blue and bright. It was the most comfortable time of the morning, so he took a breath in the fenced yard and started again. The door of the dome was closed. A gentle spring breeze rustled a cluster of ornate hanging strings beside the door, making them tinkle. Shuang Tianan slowly lowered his waist and thrust his palm forward with a punch. The topmost flower of the string swayed gently in the wind, swirling the small balls and bells beneath it. Feiyu had strung these strings together long ago, when she was free at the non-human department, guarding the gate, using scrap parts from robots she had replaced. He found them beautiful and occasionally brought home the discarded parts from the mechanical management department. When he had nothing to do after dusk, he couldn't just sit by the west wall, reciting songs to the wilderness. It was still early for bed when he returned home, so he learned how to assemble them from Feiyu. The finished balls and bells were casually hung beneath the flowers Feiyu had crafted, grouped together. The string hung from the door lintel of the dome, tingling and jingling whenever the wind blew. The other women in the neighborhood saw them and were delighted, ordering one string each from them. 2 new strings were made last night, and Feiyu took them out of the door before going to bed and hung them together. It was so noisy now. In the intermittent wind, the tinkling sounds were also leisurely and intermittent, and suddenly became dense, and the melody became more cheerful and energetic. Shuang Tianan raised his eyes from the tip of his palm and saw that the door of the dome house was opened. Feiyu, who had changed her clothes, stood tall at the door. She followed a request, letting her cascade of hair fall down and putting on high boots. The hem of her silver-gray skirt was blown by the wind outside, and the swaying light reflected the brilliance of the rising Qi. "Is it okay?" she asked, blinking. "Okay," Shang Tannen smiled. "It looks good, no mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum." Feiyu nodded. "Yeah, you can change too." She stepped out of the door, pointed her chin towards the house. "Deputy Director Shuang's matter can't be delayed." Shang Tannen couldn't help but laugh when he heard Feiyu's words, which were the same as his. "That Deputy Director Shuang," Feiyu clarified. "Yes," he agreed, and the smile in his eyes became even brighter. He put away his fist, crossed the path in the courtyard, and walked into the house past Feiyu, smelling a faint and elegant fragrance. He took his own set of protective lining and the brown round-neck training uniform that Shang Jisheng had chosen. He turned his head slightly and saw Feiyu squatting in the courtyard, holding up the hem of her heroic silver-gray skirt, observing a clump of wild grass growing out from under the precious Yunqing stone. Since her skirt didn't drag on the ground, Shang Tannen didn't remind her. He smiled and went to change his clothes. Feiyu watched the weeds for a while. Ever since spring arrived in the Shilin Highlands, these wildflowers and grasses weren't just confined to the wilderness anymore. They seemed to seize every opportunity, happily popping up in every corner where no one could step on them. A few days ago, she spotted a tiny sprout of this weed, and it looked like it was about to bloom. Since it was growing right next to her, right under her nose, she checked it out whenever she had a free moment. Spring brings so many troubles: flowers, grasses, insects, spiders, all of them visit her home. Unfortunately, they're all protected by the Luoyang biological law. They can't be touched without a reason. Chapter 279 Real Scene. It was another day off, and because they were going to film a big movie, housekeeping and cleaning couldn't be done. After inspecting the bluestone and weeds, Feiyu took an especially careful look along the fence in the yard. Now, wild vines had grown around the fence, and flower buds had appeared. "Wow," Dag's wife from the next yard called over, "Duan Chang, you're dressed so beautifully today. Are you going on a filming today?" Look, there were the neighbors. They couldn't hide even the smallest details. The fact that Duan Chang and his wife were going to film a big movie had long been known to every household in Section 13. Even someone as reserved as Feiyu had somehow become accustomed to compromising with community life. "Yes," she raised her head and faced Brother Qi, answering in a raised voice, "Remembering something, I strung 2 strings yesterday. I want it, I want it." Dag's wife smiled happily, and when she saw that the neighbors to the east had not come out yet, she quickly opened the gate of her yard, turned to Feixiu's house, and said happily, "I have to choose first. It's there." Feixiu pointed to the lintel and saw that there was no one in her house. Shang Tannen was changing clothes in the bathroom, but the door was open. She could see his coat and the blue and white flower pattern scarf that he originally wore and later became hers on the bench by the west window. She casually closed the door, closing it silently. Fearing Dag's wife might find it rude, she personally plucked 2 strings of flower bells Shang Tannen had made the night before from under the door lintel and walked toward the gate. "You take your pick." Dag's wife had originally been drawn to Fei's craftsmanship. But since Shang Tannen had brought back some scrap parts, and Fei's wife had taught him how to make hanging bells, she saw his enthusiasm and transferred the bell-making duties she had promised to the neighboring wives to him. Occasionally, she offered some creative advice. Dag's wife, however, loved it just the same, not realizing it was her apprentice's work. "Beautiful, so beautiful. I like both," she said, unable to decide, turning them over in her hands. Shang Tannen had changed into his outdoor clothes, jacket and scarf in hand, and was about to leave when he saw Dag's wife happily jingling something out of the gate. "Hey, Brother Shang." Dag's wife turned around. "Duan Chang said you guys are going to film today." Her voice was like a lark, and she glanced curiously at Shang Tannen. She politely didn't comment on Duan Chang's husband's outfit, but only mentioned the pendant with a smile. "Duan Chang gave my family one. It's so beautiful." Hey, Shang Tannen smiled. After Dag's wife entered her own courtyard, she also found a place on the door lintel and busied herself with hanging the pendant. He walked over to Feiyu and handed her the blue and white flower pattern scarf. "Put it on now. We'll be leaving soon." Dag's wife hung the pendant and turned to see Feiyu in the Shang family's courtyard. She wrapped the scarf around her neck and looked Shang Tannen up and nodded. "You can do it too," she chuckled. Shang Tannen and Feiyu both turned their heads. Dag's wife felt embarrassed to watch and pretended to fiddle with her pendant a few more times. "Don't forget to roll up your sleeves," Feiyu reminded. "Tie the scarf." Shang Tianan shouldered the coat destined to be flung onto the beach for show. And while rolling up the sleeves, he pointed to his neck to signal her. Time was running out, and seeing Feiyu's head tilted and always failing to tie it as Shang Jishan had requested, he simply reached out to help pull it up. Feiyu pulled the coat off his shoulders, hung it at her elbow, and asked him to help. The two of them did the final tidying up in the yard and checked on each other. Let's go, Dag's wife waved to them. Section Chief, Brother Shang, you will definitely take great photos. We are looking forward to seeing you, sister-in-law. Our section will send a robot to do public cleaning today. If you have time, please help us keep an eye on it, okay? Don't worry. Shang Tianan thanked her and got into the car with Feiyu. Feiyu adjusted the corners of her robe on the passenger seat and spread his prop coat flat on her knees. Shang Tianan watched her sit firmly while starting the car. They had packed everything neatly, following Shang Jishan's instructions. However, the on-site procedures were a mess. For safety reasons, Luo Wang's command center agreed to let the project team take people likely to the location, but only gave a one-day window, and at most 1 day to add another day for reshoots. However, the requirements for the blockbuster effect were not lowered at all. Shang Jishan was under great pressure. With a convoy and the people, the guards also sent out accompanying soldiers in a 1-to-1 ratio to prevent any accidents. The large group rushed to the various locations he had chosen, according to the order he had arranged. Whenever he had a free moment, he would have his assistants, Feng Hua or Xiao Duan, shout, "Those of you who haven't been in line yet, please wait patiently. Don't get out of line, don't stray too far, and be here when called. Everyone, be patient." Shang Jishan had chosen a fine sandy beach on the Wishuwili Peninsula, the new base of the non-human tribe, for Feiyu and Shang Tianan's filming location. This perfectly matched the authenticity of Feiyu's work there. However, according to the schedule, they wouldn't be there until at least afternoon. Looking at the chaotic filming scene, Feiyu guessed that they wouldn't be there by noon. Shang Tianan had already volunteered to help the project team. The robot manager in the publicity department was being manipulated like a top-eye Shang Jishan and the others. The rules for on-site filming were that the exploration robots would first clear and inspect the area, followed by the security forces to ensure absolute safety. Then, the performance robots would perform the routine, and finally, the real people would follow the same route. This process for each scene was quite complex. But there was no other way. Safety was the top priority. "Let's get it done in one take," Shang-Ji shouted, a bit menacingly. "If you drag your feet a few times here, your next performance time will be squeezed out. None of us would want that, would we? We've already practiced this, and now we're just doing it again in a different location. Don't panic, anyone? Come on, those of you who aren't busy, don't just enjoy snacks and take in the scenery, but review your scenes mentally. If you've reviewed, but haven't gotten to your next scene yet, rest and don't move around. Conserve your energy and save your best mental state for your performance. Brothers and sisters, talk less, stop wandering around, quietly watch others learn. And think about it yourself. We have to do every scene quickly and smoothly. We must finish without a single setback before the time given by command. Time is running out." The idea was good, fast and smooth. But in reality, things can go wrong, especially in a brand new location. It's impossible to get everything right in one take. Feiyu followed Shang Jishan's request and sat on a small stool, eating quietly to conserve her strength, while looking around and thinking. It was a mess, really a mess. Chapter 280 Meeting on the Beach. Feiyu mentally commented. The performance wasn't up to par, but it wasn't exactly, it just didn't meet Shang Jishan's perfect standards. Furious, Shang Jishan couldn't bring himself to curse. He suspected the robot wasn't providing adequate service, or demonstrating enough. He repeatedly called for the robot administrator to fix it. Add to that the number of people, and the mere sound of footsteps or casual conversations would create a cacophony of noise. Shang Jishan simply couldn't keep up. She ate her snacks in silence, occasionally glancing at Shang Tianan to make sure he didn't disappear. When called upon, they would always go to the project team in pairs. As long as Shang Tianan was still within her sight, she continued to eat her snacks, waiting for the chance that a family member's service robot would malfunction so she could go and help. Shang Tianan told her to sit down, The robot would call her if anything needed it. The administrator agreed. So she sat down. See, the small stools were placed behind the couples, arranged according to the order of performance, to make it easier for the project team to find them. So, Feiyu sat on a small stool wherever she went, then folded it up and followed the main group on the Poseidon chariot to a new location. She had a snack in Qi Changgong mountain, a proper nutritious lunch in the desert, and rested outside a cave, staring at the exit of a hidden river. Finally, she was well fed and refreshed, her mental and physical strength at peak levels. A robot in charge of supply distribution had a minor problem. It had been provoked by someone, and after distributing something to the crowd, it circled back and insisted on collecting it, even with a half-eaten cookie in its mouth. Our administrator is in the cave, and Brother Shang is also in the cave, Feng Huer said, her mind fluttering. Unlike Xiao Duan, who only provided support for the performances, she, as a studio assistant, was responsible for logistical matters for Shang Jishan. She had spent half a day dedicated to serving the crowd outside the performance, and she was more exhausted and busy than anyone else. Let me do it, Feiyu said, standing up. The malfunctioning robot was actually quite easy to repair. Feiyu interrupted its incessant begging and led it to a deserted area near the exit of the underground river. She checked its system and discovered it wasn't an emotional issue, but rather a process that had become unstable. She overrode it with a new one. The repaired robot was obedient and docile. Feiyu glanced over and saw a group of guards spread out in formation not far away, guarding the perimeter. From checking the system, she knew the guards hadn't received their snacks yet, so she instructed the robot, prepare to distribute them to our guards. Okay, the robot said, raising its footsteps and approaching one of them. Feiyu followed dutifully. The guards were strictly disciplined, and whether they were allowed to eat at this time depended on their superior's orders, even though the robot system had already compiled a list of distribution times. Brother, Feiyu raised her voice, calling out as she had Feng Huer, wanting to say something. The man, hearing the footsteps and the call, swiftly turned around. Feiyu and he were both stunned, their eyes meeting. It was an old enemy. What's up? Qi Changgong asked, looking Feiyu up and down, glancing around, his face solemn. The filming of the underground river outside the cave had irrigated a lush forest. Most of the people who didn't need to enter the cave to perform gathered on a slightly flat, open area at the edge of the forest, where there was more space. Feiyu, Qi Changgong, and the guards, who stood every 5 meters, had entered the forest a little. Qi light pierced through the treetops, casting a flickering shadow on their faces. Shuang Tannen had taken her to thank him in person some time ago and even gave him candy. Feiyu thought, the right and wrongs were gone, and it was time to return to normal socializing. Nothing, she thought, her voice clear and cold as usual. The robot was broken, but it's working now. Do you want to eat now? Let's talk when we change shifts, Qi Changgong said gravely. Feiyu turned away easily. But Qi Changgong seemed to notice her turning and curled his lips. He stared at her back. She was wearing an exquisite skirt and an overly loose men's jacket. It was obvious that it belonged to her husband. The unconventional guess flashed through his mind again. It was really a bit depressing. He turned back. After the cave, Brother Qi could no longer bear it and headed west. The Poseidon chariot carried them and finally arrived at the Wishuwili Peninsula, which Feiyu was familiar with. That's Beeman Mountain. It's okay now. That's Shrike Cape. The Black Cliff is particularly obvious, but it's a pity that it can't be seen from this direction. Feiyu pointed to the distance on the beach and introduced to Shuang Tannen. Now they were standing on a beach at the northernmost end of Fuyao Bay. The vast Benpang Sea was vast and boundless. A sea of shimmering light emerged from the blue waves. The waves gently lapped the beach, submerging the spray and foam in the gravel. The beauty of this place was that a few meters above the beach, a large area of tall sedge grew. At this time of year, it was full of white spike flowers, swaying comfortably in the sea breeze, very beautiful. Feiyu had initially submitted several scenic spots she'd seen at the project team's request, and Shang Jishan had immediately chosen this one. She was relieved. If Shang Jishan hadn't been satisfied, he'd have asked them to submit a few more. Shuang Tannen had visited one of the water features, including the Alley Sea. If Shang Jishan had chosen it out of sheer madness, not only would she have to walk back and forth in the freezing wind in a thin skirt, but Shuang Tannen would also have to wash his hands and feet in the icy water. That was absolutely unacceptable. The stretch of beach on the Wishiwili Peninsula coastline had originally been named. After Xiang Jishan selected it, Feiyu asked Minister Jin to give it a name for easy reference. Normally, the peninsula was assigned to the non-human department for research purposes, and the department would assign names to the smaller areas based on their needs, with others adopting the same name. Minister Jin was very busy, so he asked Feiyu to create a name for this unnamed beach. Because the Yan family woodless hadn't come up with a good one, Feiyu put in a lot of thought and came up with an elegant name. Encounter Beach, Exploration, Xiang Jishan ordered. No mistake, just one song, one post, one content, 1 book, 1 bar, take a look. Isn't she going to sing I'm here loudly later, and then Xiang Tannen will see her while washing his hands? She named it Encounter Beach. I have never been here before, Xiang Tannen whispered. He looked at the territory of Feiyu's department and couldn't help but take a few more glances out of curiosity. A few days ago, I asked the robots of the Shrike observation station to keep an eye on this place. Chief K knew we were coming here, and he also helped me sort it out when he led the team out. In addition, after the project team decided on the various outdoor locations, the Roundhouse Command Center sent people to conduct an environmental screening. Safety is absolutely guaranteed, Feiyu said, reassuring Xiang Tannen. Okay, Xiang Tannen smiled. On the Encounter Beach, the on-site exploration robots were quickly deployed. It was surrounded by people. The performance robots were already waiting at the edge of the beach. This segment was Xiang Tannen and Feiyu's own footage. Neither of them wanted to cause any trouble for Xiang Jishan, and they both wanted to get through it as smoothly as possible. So, after a few words, Xiang Tannen and Feiyu's team joined the performance robots, listening to the robots explain the key points of the performance while also checking that all systems were functioning smoothly. The exploration robots finished their work, and the guards split up into several directions, moving lightly toward the tide line and the sedge. All was safe. Qi Changgong and Fang Lai split up their shifts as usual. He guarded the tide line, Fang Lai the sedge. After the performance robots warmed up, Feiyu's team took their place in the sedge, and Xiang Tannen walked to the water's edge, throwing his costume jacket onto the beach. Xiaoduan and an assistant robot quickly gathered up and meticulously adjusted the jacket, creating a casual, messy, yet beautiful pose. Qi Changgong twitched his lips. The sound of the tide lapping at the beach, and Xiang Tannen rolled up his trouser legs and sleeves and squatted by the sea. Oh, 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 oh. He gazed at the waves, humming softly, his low voice brushing across the waves like the wind. The music rose. A woman with a bow suddenly appeared from the sedge, gazing up at the distant sky, her smoky voice piercing the heavens. I'm here, I'm here. Qi Changgong stood across from Xiang Tannen, paying close attention to the performer exposed in the vast sea. He saw him turn toward the source of the singing and smiled. Chapter 281 Farewell. 6 months after the Luoyang landing, the Chuxi was finally returning. It carried with it some Luoyang plant and animal genetic markers, environmental samples, health reports on the landing population, and other Luoyang specialties. Of course, there were also letters from each household to their friends and family, and consignments approved by the Construction Corps Command. Xiang Tannen wrote a letter to Gran Wali. He picked up some small items from other stars he had found at the moon market and wrapped them up. Standing up, he saw Feiyu wandering around the yard, inspecting the fence again. Ever since the little spider visited their home, she had always been extra careful inside and out, strolling through the yard whenever she had a free moment. Are you done? Feiyu turned around. Mid-spring had arrived on Shiling Highlands. The small, thin vines clinging to the fence were blooming pale blue flowers, called Xiaoliaoteng, while the weeds beneath the cloud blue stone had sprouted clusters of bright pink morning glory, called Fenxiaozi. Feiyu had rigorously followed the latest version of the Dome residence management rules and had already marked the layout of their home's facilities. The small flowers in the courtyard swayed in the morning breeze, their petals catching the raindrops from the early morning protective shield, making them even more crystal clear. Although Brother Kyung had not yet dried the rain on these flowers, it had already spread everywhere, reflecting on Feiyu's body and face. Xiang Tannen happened to clearly see her dark red hair, which shone with a more playful luster than other black hair. Okay, Xiang Tannen smiled and walked out of the house. The bells were slightly vibrated by the door lintel, jingling, more cheerful than the slow sound just now. Xiang Tannen took his bag, closed the dome door, and walked towards Feiyu at the fence gate. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. If she hadn't followed, he might have written her another letter at this moment, asking how she was, talking about the local customs and people, and leaving a follow-up contact method. It's not a possibility, it's a must. This thought made Feiyu and him, now together in this small courtyard, seem almost magical. The Wei Minghuangs have left. Feiyu gazed toward the eastern entrance of the section, watching the Wei family's dazzlingly colorful car ascend into the sky. She turned again and reported, the Dags left early, too. There's definitely a line at the community service center. Well, let's concentrate on one time slot and take our time, Shang Tanin replied, his rare nostalgia evaporating like moisture under Brother Kaiyong's radiance. He smiled, then turned around, closed the gate, and climbed into the car with Feiyu. As the car lifted off, Feiyu glanced sideways at the wasteland west of their home. It was ablaze with flowers, so beautiful that the cliffs clinging to the horizon further west seemed pristine, not menacing. As the section chief of Section 13, she had recently been assigned another voluntary task, surveying the plant species growing on a patch of wasteland near her home to see if any had yet to be recorded in the Highland Biodiversity Database. At this moment, she glanced over and saw that the scene was similar to the one she had seen on her way home from get-off work yesterday, so she retracted her gaze and looked directly below. The car had already passed several residential areas in succession. Some of the gates and doors of the houses in the community below were closed. I guess they had lined up early. Some people were running around in the yard, looking very busy. On this day off, almost everyone was excited about the upcoming return of the Chuxiu. I don't know what to be excited about, it's not like they can return by themselves. Feiyu complained inwardly, then glanced at the package in her hand for Shang Tanin, and said truthfully, the things you gave to Grandma Li can be bought within the alliance. Shang Tanin chuckled. It's even easier to buy, there is no need to go through so much trouble to take the Chuxiu to Luoyang and back. Shang Tanin continued to smile and hummed. Feiyu secretly pouted. The Roundhouse Command forbade private shipments of Luo Wang's products to friends and relatives back home, but everyone still couldn't hide their excitement. They exchanged them at the monthly market, and now they could send them back home as gifts. Putting aside the sentimental sentiment, it was actually a waste of logistics. She didn't need to prepare anything for anyone, which saved her the trouble. The community service center was indeed crowded with people. Everyone lined up in the activity square. It wasn't a rush on a day off, so they gathered together to chat and get along well. Have you finished writing the letter to the trusteeship agency? Even though he knew Feiyu was reliable, Shang Tanin still took the opportunity to confirm it. I'll give it to you, you can pay it together. Feiyu only had this one letter in total. It wasn't to her relatives, but she couldn't resist her concern for the old house, so she asked the trusteeship agency about the old house's condition and politely thanked it. According to the rules, she signed it together with Shang Tanin as the right holder, so there was no problem giving it to him. Shang Tanin received Feiyu's letter and his own letter to Grandma Li. After he got to the front of the line, he passed all the letters to the messenger machine at once and handed the prepared package over for inspection. Everything is ready. Feiyu looked at the messenger machine. After Chu Xiu had gone 2/3 of the way back, this small box that had swallowed so many letters would start up and send the letters to every corner of the alliance according to the address. She was so polite, the custodial agency should give her a reply. Let's go, Shang Tanin looked at her and said in a gentle voice. Feiyu nodded and sighed secretly as she walked out of the line. Next, they did not stay in the big square to chat with the neighbors. They still had something to do today. Shang Tanin got in the car, took Feiyu and rushed to the hospital. Chu Mianmian will return to the alliance with Chu Xiu this time. Although Chu Mianmian still looked light-hearted, a closer look revealed that her cheeks had gained some flesh, which made Shang Tanin and Feiyu happy for her. Sister Jack, where will you live after you return to the alliance? Shang Tanin asked with concern. I haven't planned yet. The sadness that was so obvious on Chu Mianmian's face was no longer there. She was very quiet, sitting in a room specially reserved for her in the hospital. She spent most of her time looking outside, talking leisurely, as if she was half-dazed. Did the recruitment office or headquarters say anything? What did they say? Chu Mianmian repeated softly, and after a while, she said, they just agreed to my application to return. They will arrange everything for my future life, so I can rest assured, it's good to go back. Shang Tanin and Feiyu exchanged a glance, and said gently, "After you go back, you can be with the people back home and have fun. When Sister Jem misses us one day, you can apply to the recruitment office and take a ship back to visit us. By then, the waterway might be open, and the communication channels might be fully open. It will probably be convenient for us to chat with Sister Jem on a daily basis." "Yes," Qi Changgong agreed softly, her expression expressionless. As Shuang Tanan and Feiyu were about to leave, she walked out the door. "Brother Shuang, Sister Shuang, I have a favor to ask of you." "Sister Jack, please go ahead," Shuang Tanan said immediately. "After I left, Guanking's grave was left unattended." Qi Changgong sobbed, and only at the mention of her husband's name did her expression, as still as a well, seem to light up. "We'll visit Guanking often. Feiyu, YC, Chang, and Guanking's colleagues, will all go," Shuang Tanan promised solemnly. "Thank you." Qi Changgong's tears flowed uncontrollably. On June 15, the first year of Luoyang, after Shilin landed, the calendar department's festival affairs office designated a second festival following the New Year's Day. This day marked the Chuxiu's return, known as the Hangxiang Festival. Their starship had departed with the first batch of information and supplies, but they had all stayed, continuing their journey, cherishing this planet as their own. The Highland Shield was open to its maximum as never before. The natural wind of Luoyang vigorously blew the flowers and plants in the wasteland. Feiyu and Shuang Tanan stood in the yard and looked up. The couples of each family stood in the yard and looked at the sky. The Chuxiu was in the sky, flying away like a stray arrow. This grand farewell ceremony for the whole group to take a vacation actually lasted only 3 or 4 seconds. Soon, there was nothing in the sky of the highland. Feiyu retracted her gaze and met Shuang Tanan's. She didn't know what Shuang Tanan was thinking at this moment. Everyone always has complicated emotions at this moment, full of feelings, or homesickness, or many hopes for the future. She only knew that Qi Changgong went back. As long as a way was opened, she could find a way to go back in the future. No, she would not discuss this issue with Shuang Tanan. Qi Changgong's return was at the cost of Guanking's sacrifice. Of course, she didn't want bad things to happen to Shuang Tanan. She would have other ways, she would. "Feiyu," Shuang Tanan stared at her hair blown by the wind and asked softly, "Do you miss home?" "Not yet," she raised her eyes. Chapter 282 Briefing. It was another spring day with flowers blooming. Feiyu stood outside the gate of the fenced courtyard and saw the cars of the neighbors taking off one by one. Dag's wife even greeted her cheerfully. She nodded in response and looked towards the east entrance of Duan, but she couldn't see her own car. She felt anxious as if she was being scratched by a cat. After watching for a while, she went into the house. After thinking about it, she realized that after the community meeting, if the follow-up was efficient and they started the next step of work directly, they might not be able to go home for lunch. It would be better to take some nutritional supplements to be safe. She squatted down and pulled out a box of this month's quota of nutritional supplements from the storage compartment under the bed, and counted out the portions for her and Shuang Tanan. She glanced at Shuang Tanan's suitcase and paused. She really wanted to help him get out a casual coat in case he had to change out of his work clothes when he got home. This would save time. Men here don't care about clothes. Many people wear work clothes on weekends. Feiyu gave up the thought and quickly restored the storage grid to its original state, then continued to wait. She couldn't stay in the house, so she stepped out of the door, followed the path in the yard, and then came to the main road in front of the door. She took a look and saw that the yards of every household were empty. It was obvious that everyone was rushing to the meeting place. Feiyu was anxious, her eyes darting around the quiet 13th section. She secretly regretted that if she had known, she would have just taken the car from Dag's family and left without waiting for Shuang Tanan. Who told him to be slow? She would go to the meeting first. This meeting is important, very important. The land needs to be divided and houses need to be built. Today is a briefing. It has been nearly 2 years since the landing, and the geographical phenology of Luoyang Peninsula has relatively detailed data. The Roundhouse Command believes that the time has come to let a group of people evacuate the highlands and build houses outside Shilin City for trial living. Feiyu was pacing outside her own fenced yard. The western wasteland had long since ceased to be desolate. Late last year, the community allocated resources for a beautification project, tidying up these unused plots. They established plots, dug more canals, and introduced a variety of native flowers and vegetables, already cultivated in Luoyang. Now, Neatly arranged flowers bloomed everywhere, along with lush forests. From Feiyu's usual spot on the bluestone slab beneath the west outer wall, the rugged cliffs on the horizon were obscured by the lush, verdant peaks of the plants. Now, even the gaps in the cliffs were invisible, and the scenery had become several times more graceful and subdued. However, Feiyu had no desire to hide at the west outer wall. She tilted her head upward, squinting to avoid Qianggong's gaze, searching the white clouds in the sky. Why hasn't Shuang Tian'an returned yet? Just then, a half-orange, half-green car whizzed past. It was her family's car. She immediately became happy, took a quick look, and ran into the house, grabbed the nutritional supplements on the small side table, and ran out again. The bell string that was more than half the height of the door was swayed by the wind caused by her stepping in and out. Feiyu. Her car stopped at the gate of her fenced yard with incredible accuracy, and Shuang Tian'an called out as the car door opened. "Do you want to go in again?" Feiyu pointed to the dome behind her. "No, there's nothing to take." Shuang Tian'an hadn't finished speaking when Feiyu ran over and sat directly in the passenger seat without stopping. "Let's go. Have you been waiting for a long time?" Shuang Tian'an smiled at this and quickly restarted the car. "There's a lot of things to do in the department." Feiyu kept complaining in her heart that the mechanical management department was so unreasonable to keep Shuang Tian'an working for so long on such an important day. "Is it going well?" she asked. "Progress is going well. General Shroud just happened to be arriving with the backbone of his guards, so we talked for a while," Feiyu hummed, figuring that since the general and the officers didn't need to build their own houses, it was natural they wouldn't expect their community to have such a major concern. Under normal circumstances, she would have been interested in discussing Shuang Tian'an's endocannabinoid robot project, but not now. Her mind wasn't on the new technology. All she could think about was her future house and land. This had been one of her clear goals when she summoned Luo Wang. Now that it was nearing completion, she couldn't help but be overjoyed. She had a lot to discuss with Shuang Tian'an: the location, the house design. She opened her mouth, but remembered that many of the rumors were just gossip circulating among the neighbors, and she didn't know which were true. Despite her excitement, Feiyu managed to keep her composure and decided to hold off, declaring that she would discuss everything after the briefing. The community plaza was already full. Fortunately, the meeting hadn't started yet, but the place was buzzing with people, smiling and talking excitedly. Shuang Tian'an and Feiyu went to look for a seat. "Hey, Section Chief, Tian'an, there's a seat here." The two looked in the direction the voice came from, and it turned out to be their section neighbor Wei Minghuang, who had spotted them. However, there was only one empty brick on the ground, which could only accommodate one bench. Wei's wife was enthusiastic and looked around. There's another empty one." Feiyu shook her head. Since there was still some time, there was no need to rush to sit separately. She naturally wanted to sit with Shuang Tian'an, so it would be more convenient for them to discuss things. "We'll look for it again." Shuang Tian'an also shook his head and smiled and thanked the Wei couple. The two wandered among the people. Shuang Tian'an opened the square seating map, which was much clearer than trying to identify the empty bricks on the ground in the crowd. Feiyu didn't even bother looking at the map. She basically couldn't understand it. Even if she knew which direction he had a vacant seat, she couldn't find the corresponding one in practice. She usually handed the task of finding a seat to Shuang Tian'an, unless the seat was right under her nose. At this moment, greetings came from everywhere, some of which were calling her or Shuang Tian'an. Feiyu took the initiative to look over, smiled at the people, and said, "You are here?" "Hello." Usually, the task of entertaining people was Shuang Tian'an's, since he was busy. Feiyu could also fill in the gap. "There are 2 more seats there." Shuang Tian'an raised his head and pointed to the last corner of the square. He moved his finger again, pointed to a place in the crowd, and reported, "There are seats there too, let's go there." Feiyu made a quick decision and quickened his pace to the back of the square. Shuang Tian'an had no objection and followed her. As soon as the sensor strips on the 2 small floor tiles were touched by their feet, the small bench rose. The two sat down, barely even greeting their neighbors, when a giant screen illuminated above the square. The activity plaza, previously bustling with activity, fell silent within a few moments. The heads of the housing department, construction department, and other departments, accompanied by a number of assistants, appeared on the screen, all beaming. "Greetings, colleagues. According to Headquarters Initiative, the housing department will further improve living conditions for everyone in the next phase. We plan to gradually expand settlements beyond Shilin City, ensuring comfortable and spacious living. This will also allow us to directly utilize and oversee more land, ultimately leading to the prosperity of our entire Luoyang Pangaea. Now, let me introduce several key implementation points for the resettlement project. The housing department had began. The silence in the meeting room only lasted a moment before a louder buzz erupted. Land allocation and housing construction were truly underway. Feiyyu's blood boiled. Chapter 283 Distribution. First, the first pilot settlement will be the Wao Plain, the minister said with a smile. It's a great location. I won't go into further detail about its environmental parameters. You can click on the Luoyang map for more information. Feiyu paused, then leaned over to Shuang Tannen and whispered, if we follow Maman's example, the Wao Plain will become the first district, and the Shilin Highlands will likely become the administrative center. Shuang Tannen nodded gently. The Wao Plain lies beneath the Qianping mountain range, east of the Shilin Highlands. That area is the most fertile, beautiful, and largest alluvial plain in the entire Luoyang Pangaea. Every family willing to be among the first to relocate out of the Shilin Highlands can apply after the meeting. The command will screen suitable relocation families based on the number of applying families, the total social contribution points of the couple in each family, and the principle of balanced coordination of various types of talent in the new settlement. According to the advice of the recruitment office, each relocation family will be allocated a land quota of 4,000 square meters per person, referred to as one unit, for a total of 8,000 square meters of land, consisting of 2 units. The command will divide the units into plots based on the geographical conditions of the Wao Plain and the principles of continuity and equality. Relocation families will obtain plots by random drawing. Once selected, they cannot apply for withdrawal or exchange for any reason. Relocation families have a civic obligation to conscientiously manage the plots they receive. They can plant recommended crop varieties under the guidance of relevant agencies of the Ministry of Agriculture, choose natural conservation, or plan other land use methods on their own. Regardless of the land use method, it must be evaluated and approved by the newly established Wao City Hall under the command before it can be implemented and will be subject to its supervision and guidance. Each relocated family will permanently own the 2 units of land they have been granted. They will submit a land planning proposal at the beginning of each 4-year cycle, submit a land use report to the Wao City Hall annually, and use this report as the basis for their land tax returns. At the end of each cycle, they will submit a land use cycle summary report to the Wao City Hall, which will serve as the basis for applying for a new land planning proposal for the next cycle. The Wao City Hall is obligated to help families in its jurisdiction revise and improve their planning details to align with the overall development direction of Luoyang Star. Relocated families can build private homes on the land they have been granted for family living. The scale standards will be determined by the relocation project team. The relocation project team can designate a professional team to complete the design and construction, or family members can design and build the homes themselves. The relocation project team will cover the costs according to the subsidy standard for each household. Once the private homes are completed and registered, the relocated families will no longer have the right to reside in the existing community domes in Shilin City, and their community ties will be transferred to the new Wao City Hall. Other personal material quotas will remain unchanged. Allocated according to the unified regulations for material quotas for Luoyang landing personnel and the implementation rules of various industry departments. As pioneers of the resettlement project, the first batch of resettlement families who voluntarily and successfully moved to the Wao Plain will automatically receive 2,000 social contribution points each. Are you going? Feiyu stared at Shuang Tannen with sparkling eyes. After the meeting, they returned home, closed the door, and sat under the west window to discuss. Feiyu definitely wanted to go, even though she knew that the first batch of people who moved out of the protective shield of Shilin Highlands would have some pilot observations on their physical health reactions. She still wanted to go. It was just a matter of early or late for exposed survival. In the end, everyone would move out of Shilin City. She didn't mind it being so early. In fact, she couldn't wait. She and Shuang Tannen lived in a very crowded place, and it took her a lot of trouble to swap beds with Shuang Tannen every time. Do you want to go? Shuang Tannen asked. Yes, Feiyu nodded without hesitation, fearing that Shuang Tannen had other considerations. After all, he was the one who was going to live permanently, and he always had to carefully compare many aspects. She leaned forward across the small side table, closer to him, and analyzed. The Wowo plane is the best. No expedition team that went there has ever had any accidents. This is one reason. The two of us don't really know much about it. I've hardly been there. I only passed by it. You may have been there 2 or 3 times, twice. Shang Tannen chuckled. I haven't been all over it, but I have a good impression of it. The climate is mild, the vegetation is lush, there are many waterways, and there are some small hills around. That's all. That's right, Feiyu nodded. These surface impressions are very good. Moreover, you have to believe that in order to promote the resettlement project, the command has definitely selected the best and safest areas for the first batch. This is the second reason. Third, Shang Tannen chuckled again. Third, many people are still observing and waiting, and are looking forward to seeing the results of the first batch of resettlement before making a decision. They think that is safer. If we apply now, we will have a great advantage in being selected. Shang Tannen glanced at Feiyu, and after almost no more than a second of hesitation, he nodded. Then we apply. Oh, won't you consider it again? Feiyu widened her eyes. You are right. Feiyu was stunned for a moment, then she sat up straight and relaxed. See, she likes to cooperate with straightforward people. It is so efficient to discuss and consult. In less than 3 minutes, this important matter was settled. Shang Tannen was indeed efficient. He opened the communicator and went directly to the immigration application system. Feiyu stared at his operation intently. Soon, the system popped up a receipt. Thank you for your application. Please wait for the screening results. She raised her head and met Shang Tannen's eyes. After thinking for a while, she said solemnly, Tannen, when we divorce in the future, the property will be half for each of us. Maybe you should get a little more. After all, you are the main applicant. Shang Tannen was stunned for a moment. He really didn't expect that her thoughts had reached that point. Smiling, he shook his head and said, half for each of us, no mistake, 1 song, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar, take a look. Feiyu frowned. She didn't know how to operate the legal details yet. It was a bit early to say anything now. She could only make a rough decision. She became more generous. If I can give you more, I will give you more. Her expression was very serious. Half each? Shang Tannen said again. Feiyu looked at him and decided to discuss this matter later. There was another matter. How should the house be built? Should we build 2 in advance? But at the meeting, they said that the immigration project team has general planning requirements for private houses. It should be a large, whole house. If we design them separately, will others find it strange? After we apply for the first batch of immigrants, we will refer to the specific situation and decide. Shang Tannen looked at her gently and asked, what do you think? Okay. Brother Qiyong in the west window fell to the edge of the cliff, leaving only the red afterglow dyed on the tops of the trees, casting a large patch of rosy light on their small dome house. Feiyu was in high spirits because of the good news. She glanced out the west window, a smile on her lips, and finally concluded, Tannen, in the future, my share, the house and land, will be sold to you first. Shang Tannen smiled, nodded in appreciation, and promised, me too. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 selected. The screening results are out. There are a total of 105 families in the first batch who voluntarily moved out of the protective shield of Shilin Highlands. After a comprehensive assessment, the Roundhouse Command Headquarters selected 60 families. When Feiyu got off work, she just drove past the evacuation belt in front of the non-human department when she received the notification of selection. She immediately called Shang Tannen. Feiyu, I know. I'm online with Situ and will be there in a moment, Shang Tannen replied. She raised her eyebrows, said oh, and looked at the blue sky through the car window, feeling a little happy. Although she had a hunch that her family would be selected. Not to mention that she and Shang Tannen were the first men and women to land on Luoyang Star since the Chuxi arrived, and they were always the first men and women to be arranged for field work and field nights. It would not surprise her at all to be selected for the first batch of people to move out of the shield. Besides, after talking to her neighbors, she felt that her family's combined social contribution points were higher than others. The Yan family's woodlice and insects had helped her earn a lot of points, and her position as community section leader had also steadily increased her points each month. All told, her points were on par with Shuang Tannen, who often toiled away on field work, while the other older sisters-in-law were slightly behind. In terms of social contribution points, she felt her family easily ranked near the top of the applicant pool. Now that the results were in, Feiyu was still elated. She would have her own territory and her own large yard, free to move freely in any room she pleased, without having to worry about the diligent and dedicated community service robot calling her late at night to check on her family's well-being. She could even step down as section leader of Section 13. Shuang Tannen called back a short while later, and Feiyu, looking on with growing delight, was surprised when she answered the phone. "I thought you and Sita were going to talk for a long time." She had finally learned to be a chatty person, hadn't she? "No," Shuang Tannen smiled. "Are you talking about the relocation notice?" "Yes," Feiyu nodded cheerfully. "I was wondering if you received it. Since you did, it's nothing to worry about. Hey, when are you leaving?" She glanced at Shuang Tannen's background screen. Today, it was his turn to inspect the Robot Management Service Department at Tongqiao Fortress. Judging by the screen behind him, he should still be there. "It'll be a little later than usual. I won't be home for dinner, so don't wait for me, okay?" Feiyu agreed. By now, the management of Tongqiao Fortress had become more routine. There weren't the frequent emergencies like when they first landed. The protective shield was lowered during the winter, but now, in mid-spring, with thunderstorms rare over the cliffs, it was fully deployed once a month on a sunny afternoon. The buffer period for field personnel returning to the shield was shortened, and all processes were sped up considerably. No one was as concerned about entering and leaving Tongqiao Fortress as they used to be, when anyone from their family was out on field work, as if it were a major event. Nowadays, it's rare to see families gathering in large numbers under Tongqiao, eagerly waiting until curfew. Occasionally, on a weekend off, a few families with nothing to do would go to Tongqiao to greet their family members who were out on duty. Feiyu had long stopped going to Tongqiao specifically to wait for Shuang Tannen, not to mention that he was just on duty at Tongqiao Fortress today. It was just a normal routine, nothing special. "Drive slowly on the road," Shuang Tannen advised her casually. She hummed, feeling pleased, and also concerned about Fang Situ. Did Situ and Huijing get their applications? No. Then he's unhappy. No, we just exchanged notifications. Shuang Tannen pulled up the corners of his mouth, a smile escaping his lips. "You know," Feiyu raised an eyebrow. She could imagine Fang Situ grabbing Shuang Tannen and talking loudly, no doubt with a few moving words of regret and lament, and Shuang Tannen would definitely not be able to get a word in during the first few sentences. "I analyzed it for him," she shook her head. "Migration is a big deal. These days, whenever residents of the 4 major communities get together to chat, the topic never strays from their conversation. They all want to ask their neighbors if they want to go, if they've signed up, and whether it's worth going now. Then, they'll share their own circumstances and ask for advice." Fang Situ and Huijing had come to visit Shuang the other day. When they heard Shuang Tannen and Feiyu announce their plans to go, they immediately became unsure. "Shuang Dad and Shuang Mom, where are you going?" "It can't be wrong," he reasoned, slapping his thigh. "Jingjing, we're going too." "I don't think you can go," Feiyu explained. "You and Sister Jing run the nursery." "Where is it?" "Next to the Mueller camp," Fang Situ lamented. "It's been almost 2 years, and not a single immigrant family has had a child." Thanks to his outspoken revelation, Shuang Tannen and Feiyu learned that, at the last family care day before the Chuxiu's departure after the initial training at Camp Kuralchi, other families had been advised by counselors regarding physical health care, urging them to avoid having children during the initial phase of Luoyang's construction, arguing that it would be more appropriate to wait until they were settled. Later, as the conscripts began to land, the Ministry of Health coordinated with community service centers to organize regular health screenings and provide unified information to all households. Feiyu, as the section leader, was notified and, as required, relayed the information to everyone in the section. Later, she learned of this requirement. It wasn't mandatory, but it was temporarily discouraged. But everyone adhered to it, and in the past 2 years, no children had been born unexpectedly. Fang Situ continued his secondment at the hospital, and Zhao Qiqing nursery remained vacant since its completion. Huijing alone went there daily to work and oversee its daily maintenance. Fang Situ's enthusiasm for Zhao Qiqing was somewhat suppressed. Although he still held the position of director of Luo Wangxing Nursery, he would feel from time to time that this position would eventually be passed to his daughter Jingjing. Without children, Jingjing could handle this job alone. Even Jingjing was leisurely, so what else did he need to do? Never mind, I'll be your neighbor, Feng Sita muttered. When Xiao kicking is officially put into use, we can at most drive to Shilin City to work every day. If you move out, won't you have to do the same in the future? He added. I can't just stay here with Xiao kicking and wait for thousands of years. Even if Xiao kicking can't be put into use yet, it is still one of the most important places in our Luo Wang, Feiyu concluded. The director's family should not be too far away from it. I don't think it's likely that you will apply to move out of Shilin City. Really? Feng Sita was skeptical, but he felt very relieved when he heard it. While other families were discussing whether to sign up, he hadn't been tempted at all. It was simply out of high professional ethics. As the principal, how could he possibly be so far away from the nursery? Imagine the nursery filled with a lively and adorable second generation of Luoyang flowers, while he, the principal, lived thousands of miles away, having to drive a long way to get to work. Would that be a hassle for the children? However, after Feiyu's words, Feng Situ's original desire to join the business community in applying for residency was fully rekindled. His eyes rolled, his mind made up, and he said excitedly, Jingjing, let's do it. We'll apply. Feng Situ signed up before the application deadline. When the screening results came out today, he was so happy that he immediately went to Shuang Tenon and said, Dad Shuang, your mom was so accurate and her analysis was spot on. My family really wasn't selected. It seems we have to continue to look after little kicking and can't go far. Forget it, I'll just stay under Brother Chun's care for a while longer and wait for the second midterm. I won't move, no. Hey, when your family settles down in a new place, I'll take Jingjing to have a look. I'm envious of you too. If you need any bricks or tiles, just let me know. Jingjing and I have some experience in supervising construction. Little kicking was built under our supervision, so don't hesitate. Shuang Tenon was grateful and briefly relayed this to Fixu on the video call. Fixu's cheerful expression, which emanated from her heart, instantly faded, and a thoughtful look crossed her brows. We'll discuss the specific matters when we get home, he said with a smile, knowing at a glance that she had already considered the series of subsequent tedious matters of moving. Okay, I'll wait for you to come back. Feiyu readily put aside all the details such as how to build a house, whether to hire people by herself or let the relocation project team handle it, etc. What's the point of thinking about it alone when you are poor? It would be the fastest if the two of them could decide while discussing it. Chapter 285 Discussion. Alpha hung high in the eastern sky, while Beta, still yet to peek over the horizon of a field covered in flowers, plants, and vegetables, cast a wisp of moonlight above. Shuang Tenon flew over the clear, bright fields and could discern from afar a warm yellow glow from his own courtyard. The lights in other homes in Section 13 had all been turned off. Feizai was still waiting for him. He parked the car on the main road in front of his house and, just as he opened the gate to the courtyard, saw the door to the dome house also open. The string of flower bells tinkled along the door lintel in the spring evening breeze. In the light, Feizai, dressed in a large nightgown, called out, "You're back." "Hey," he said hurriedly, closing the gate and walking back into the yard. "Don't come out. I'll check the security." Checking the security wasn't just about checking the door. Feizai had her own routine. Before going to bed, she always closed the doors and windows and checked the fence. "Wash up first." Feiyu leaned over and grabbed the jingling bell, instantly stopping it. On a moonlit night, even in his own courtyard, Shuang Tenon wouldn't let Feiyu wander around alone in the dark. He smiled, agreed, slowed his pace, and followed her along the fence, walking in a well-behaved circle. "Tired?" Feiyu asked casually, carefully stepping around the cloud-blue stone. In the moonlight, she bent down to glance at the pink grass flowers that had grown under the stone this year. "Not tired. Are you hungry? Do you want a midnight snack?" The Ministry of Health's guidelines for healthy living issued in the early days of landing urged everyone to eat and exercise on time, and there was no mention of midnight snacks. This year, the details of life were not so strictly managed, and community life was becoming increasingly rich. A large cafeteria was opened. In addition to being a place for families to entertain friends, new dishes were introduced from time to time. They used local ingredients such as tamarind cultivated by the Ministry of Agriculture and prepared by the Ministry of Food to make fruitcakes or soups. They were distributed in the cafeteria every Thursday or Saturday evening. Each family could take 2 portions. If the distribution was large, it was okay to ask for more. Today was Thursday, and Feiyu was so happy that she ran to the cafeteria to line up and get the free snacks. She had already enjoyed them with her nutritional supplements at dinner, and left 1 portion on the small table by the west window, waiting for Shuang Tanin to try. "No, we had a good meal over at Tongqiao," Shuang Tanin said. After he and Feiyu finished inspecting the fence, they walked to the door. When he looked up, he saw the bowl on the small table by the west window. Then he remembered that today was Thursday and couldn't help but smile. "What food did you bring back? Have you eaten it?" "Yes, it is said to be Japanese confectionery made from local beets. It is very soft and sticky. I think you will like it. Do you want to eat it?" Feiyu said as she waved her hand, letting Shuang Tanin put down her bag and change shoes. She turned around and looked at the yard. The night was peaceful, the moonlight shone on the ground of the small yard, and the wild vines on the fence were quietly blooming. Everything was fine, so she closed the door. After Shuang Tanin put his boots on the small entrance at the door, he straightened up and turned around. He saw Feiyu sitting upright at her usual right seat at the small table by the west window, with her big eyes raised, waiting for him to look at her. When their eyes met, she opened the bowl. A pink and green Japanese confectionery with delicate patterns around it was placed at the bottom of the bowl. "It's delicious, why don't you eat it together?" He walked over with a smile and sat on his left. "It's yours," Feiyu said, pushing the bowl in front of him. "If you really can't finish it, don't force yourself. Take a look, it's the latest one developed." Shuang Tanin couldn't help laughing. He looked at the Japanese confectionery. "Can you still eat it?" Feiyu shook her head vigorously. Shuang Tanin knew that she was well educated and usually didn't eat any food before going to bed. There were no food utensils within sight in the room. It was said that it was an eyesore. It was hard for her to put this small Japanese confectionery in the bowl and put it on the table for him for so long. "It's not good to waste it for no reason." "Then I'll eat it." He took the bowl. Feiyu smiled and nodded, sitting beside him. The Japanese confectionery was very small. Shuang Tanin finished it in 1 or 2 bites. She then asked with concern, "Is it delicious?" "Delicious, yeah." Feiyu made a note that the next time the cafeteria distributed this kind of Japanese confectionery, she would take 3 portions, 1 for herself and 2 for Shuang Tanin. "How do we build our house?" She got down to business. Once selected, relocation would be a foregone conclusion. Preparations would have to begin in full swing. These matters had to be agreed upon as soon as possible. Putting aside the style, do you think we should ask the project team to help us build it, or do we think of building it ourselves? "What do you think?" Shuang Tanin asked first. The room layouts provided by the project team should all be standard drawings, which are convenient and worry-free. If we build it ourselves, we will definitely have to spend a lot of extra energy on top of our normal work. But you like us to build it ourselves? Feiyu raised her eyes and saw Shuang Tanin's face full of understanding and smile, so she nodded honestly. "I think it's worth spending any extra effort on my own private residence. Yes. It would definitely be best if we build it ourselves. It's not a problem to spend some energy for a while." Shuang Tanin suddenly felt a little embarrassed and said sincerely, "However, I have no idea how to lay out a big house." Feiyu looked at him, pulled the corner of her mouth, and added, "I have no idea either. I didn't build my house either." "No mistake, just go to the forum to take a look." "Then what should we do?" "Neither of us has any experience." Shuang Tanin smiled, his eyes lit up as he spoke. "How could I forget that Dechen and Huaisi are both in the construction department? Maybe we can ask them for some experience." "Well, as long as we state the specific requirements, there are robots that can produce the original design drafts, and we can also consult Mr. Yin and Mr. Gu, then we can prepare to build it ourselves." Feiyu was ambitious. "Unless the standard drawings issued to us by the relocation project team are particularly perfect, otherwise we will build it ourselves." "Okay," Shuang Tanin agreed wholeheartedly. The two looked at each other under the west window, and it was decided. Suddenly, they both felt that there would be an extra huge project in their lives. They smiled together. But no one cared. Instead, they felt an eager anticipation. That night, Feiyu was still thinking about the upcoming big changes, and for a while she couldn't fall asleep as peacefully as before. "Tanin," she said in a low voice. As expected, he wasn't asleep either. Feiyu stared at the faintly swaying white moonlight on the curtains and asked a question that had just occurred to her. You said, after we move out of Shilin, we'll go to Wao. Wao is so large, and each of us has 2 units on our own plot. Building our houses on our own plots will certainly be some distance away from other homes. Would we need to be more considerate about safety? My family in Maman uses a whole house protective shield, so I wonder how we'll be arranged here. Shang Tanin pondered for a moment, then said gently, don't worry. We can ask the project team any questions at the meeting tomorrow, okay? After a restless night of excitement, the day after the screening results were announced, the first 60 relocated families were summoned to the Roundhouse Command Center for a project meeting. The headquarters arranged for a Poseidon chariot to carry everyone out of the shield and eastward, crossing the majestic Qi mountain range to take a bird's-eye view of the Wao Plain. Chapter 286 Planetary Development. The Wao Plain begins in the west at the foot of the Qi Mountains. Over eons, nature has nurtured a vast, flat, fertile plain. To the east, the continental shelf continues to intersect with the ocean tides, forming the crisscrossing Cable Delta. The Wao Plain's northern boundary reaches the Liaofu Mountains, and beyond the Niji Plateau, it overlooks the Ali Sea to the north. It begins in the south at the Yanmi Mountains, crossing the mighty Langsan River, and further south lies the Ashiwili Peninsula. Feiyu is familiar with the Ashiwili Peninsula south of Wao, while Shang Tanin has visited the Ali Sea north of it many times. Neither of them had previously had much opportunity to learn about Wao. Sitting aboard the sea god's chariot, Feiyu gazed upon the Wao Plain, a canvas painted ablaze with the colors of spring and summer, patches of red, green, yellow, and blossoms, punctuated by winding silvery rivers and shimmering lakes. Is it beautiful? The head of the housing department and the leader of the first group of relocation project team laughed heartily. Beautiful, many families responded enthusiastically. Feiyu was very busy, staring at the exterior view while comparing it with the unit plot division map just issued by the project team. She had no time to care about these conversations. We'll compare the locations slowly after the draw. Shang Tanin saw her like this and knew that she was not good at reading maps, so he lowered his voice and reminded her. There's a problem. Feiyu leaned towards him. Huh? What's the problem? Shang Tanin was wrong. Feiyu was not good at reading maps, that is, when she was asked to walk from one point to another. As long as she was not looking for a route, and simply cut the map into several large pieces and asked to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of each large piece, her eyesight was very good. Those are fault zones along the edge. She ran a finger across the map, pointing to the mountains surrounding the Wao Plain. Her voice lowered. The geological data isn't detailed enough. Oh, Shang Tanin was startled, then whispered, since the Roundhouse has a settlement, it means they've fully considered this aspect of safety. There shouldn't be any problems. Feiyu glanced at him. There won't be any problems in the short term. I'm talking about the long-term possibilities, she continued. The land we've been allocated is permanent, and can be passed down to future generations. Don't you consider the factors of time and space? Shang Tanin gaped, paused for a moment, and then laughed. This time frame is too long. Feiyu frowned, unconvinced. The Luoyang Pangaea will one day disperse and split into continents in its own seas. Shang Tanin glanced at her and nodded. Indeed, that was true. Planetary development theory says so. Even without a thorough understanding of planetary development theory, the opening chapter of the Alliance's new star development history reflects the sense of urgency created by the planet's continuous evolution. For us humans, every encounter with a habitable planet is a unique encounter in the long river of time. It's never too early, nor too late, Feiyu recited softly, enunciating each word. It's simply the incredible luck of meeting at the right time. Yes, Shang Tanin nodded. While the major types of stars develop and evolve in different ways, stars of the same type generally follow a similar developmental process. It's just a matter of which emerges first and which ages first. Therefore, the Alliance has always emphasized that we're not looking for habitable stars, but whose habitable window coincides with humanity's arrival. That's essentially what it means. We can't just consider our own luck, we also need to consider whether our descendants will continue to enjoy this luck. Feiyu stared at Shang Tanin, serious and heartfelt. Since you've already considered this, why not look at it more carefully? The shifting and reshaping of a planet's terrain is like the tearing and remelting of surface layers, transforming its appearance in the blink of an eye. For those who rely on topography for survival, this is crucial. As long as it continues to rotate, as long as it remains in the cosmos, all around it are different stars. Every moment of rotation of every surface object is a collective yet independent echo, echoing back to the cosmos. When they arrived, Luoyang's star was the Pangaea and the Pan Ocean. However, whether it was the towering mountains and the incredible deep river rifts on Pangaea, or the submerged sea ridges higher than the mountains and the trenches deeper than the river valleys, all of them indicated the differences in this resonance frequency. One day, with continued rotation, the accumulated resonance differences would cause the mountains and seas to shift. Pangaea and Pan Ocean would one day be known as the 5 lakes and 4 seas. The existing marginal arches or depressions can be considered superficial rifts. Wouldn't it be easier to follow these existing superficial rifts and then conduct deeper rifts? Feiyu explained her reasoning to Shuang Tannen, eyes wide. Yes, Shuang Tannen pressed his lips together and nodded repeatedly, wanting to laugh, but also feeling that this was a truly serious issue. But the afterward phase I mentioned was truly the very future. Perhaps it would take 10 or 20,000 years for their Wowo plain to become an independent continent? He understood phase I's meaning. She wanted to live in the center of the plain, feeling that the land on the 4 edges was unsafe. If the Wowo plain separated from the rest of the world and became Wowo continent, their family would still be in the center. Shuang Tannen worried about how to raise this issue with a relocation project team. Clearly, the two sides were focusing on different time frames, unrelated sentence fragment, no mistake, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one forum. Look, the Poseidon chariot took the 60 relocated families on a bird's-eye view and returned to the large conference room at the Highland Roundhouse headquarters. Director Zhang of the Housing Department then outlined the relocation project's timeline. "Anyone, feel free to ask any questions," he said encouragingly. Everyone was filled with practical questions and was just sorting out their thoughts and sentences when a hand rose high. It was Fei, with a serious expression. "Let me talk about it." Shuang Tannen hurriedly leaned closer to Feiyu, greeted Minister Zhang who was looking over, and asked quickly, "Our family has 2 problems. The whole house protection shield you mentioned yesterday and the edge problem you just mentioned." "Right, let me do it." Feiyu gently pressed his hand and stood up. "Hello, Minister Zhang." She spoke clearly, slowly and politely, and even exchanged a few pleasantries. "Thank you for taking the trouble to take us to Wow for a field trip. The scenery there is beautiful. I am excited about the 2 units of land that will be allocated to each household, and I will definitely manage the land carefully according to the expectations of the resettlement project team. My question is, if, during the permanent tenure of the land, it may not be limited to our generation, or the next generation, or the next generation, a household's permanent land undergoes a sudden change in terrain due to force majeure of nature, such as subsidence, burial, flooding, or other reasons, making the land completely unusable. Can the original holders receive equal compensation? If so, can you explain the compensation measures in detail?" "Thank you, good question," Minister Zhang coughed. "I can't answer this question right now. I've made a note of it. I believe this is also a question that everyone is very concerned about. After a while, when the WoW City Hall is officially operational, it will specifically answer this question in a public document." "Oh, does your family have any other questions?" "Yes." Shuang Tannen stood up and said gently with a smile, "Thank you Minister Zhang for answering the question just now. We still have a small question. Regarding the design style of each of our houses, I wonder if it can be equipped with a private house protection cover? In the future, everyone will be far away from their neighbors, and it seems that it will be safer, especially when there is only one person at home. Safety is very important," Minister Zhang said happily. "Our project team has thought about this problem for everyone, and has put forward higher requirements for the design drawings of the access control system. I know that private house protection covers are very popular on many planets. Let's not talk nonsense. The project team is brainstorming with relevant departments and striving for excellence in each requirement. If the private house protection cover can be used, it will definitely be used by everyone." Feiyu wondered, is the material a bit scarce? Chapter 287 The result of the gamble. The initial relocation project in Luoyang proceeded with remarkable pace, step by step. After the project meeting, the next day was Saturday, a day off. Residents from the 4 major communities gathered at the community plaza. The first 60 households to relocate to the Wow Plains held a plot lottery ceremony in the roundhouse. The ceremony was broadcast live on a large screen in the plaza, witnessing the entire population of Luoyang. Feiyu and Shangtan sat together. The lottery ceremony was about to begin. Couples, ranked by their combined social contribution points, would step forward to select their numbers. Qi and Shangtan were assigned number 4, a very early number. Minister Zhang of the Housing Department and his family had also signed up for the initial relocation, but they were only ranked second. Number 1 was the family of the late hero Zheguangqing. Although Zhu Mianmian had returned to the alliance, all her Luoyang benefits remained, pending her return. It was said that Roundhouse Command had consulted Zhu Mianmian about this relocation, even before she returned with the Chuxiu. Zhu Mianmian said that she didn't care. If she had to choose a place, she hoped to stay away from the Rongai Plain where Zheguangqing had the accident. The Roundhouse Command helped Zhu Mianmian decide on the Wao Plain. In fact, the Wao Plain is located in the middle of the Shilin Highlands Memorial Park and the Jesse Basin. It should be convenient for Zhu Mianmian to go to any place to pay tribute to Zheguangqing when she returns in the future. General Shiluni personally drew lots for the number 1 Jie family. The general was very busy with affairs, including planetary defense and administration. He walked into the drawing site 5 minutes before the ceremony started. Feiyu paused, thinking secretly, it's true that Mr. Changgong can be encountered in everything. At this moment, he and another officer, Gu Jack, were following General Shiluni. As soon as Supreme Commander Luo Wang entered the room, everyone stood up and saluted. General Shroud never smiled in public, but he was actually quite easygoing. He waved his hand and asked Minister Zhang quietly if it had started. Minister Zhang replied that it would start soon, and he nodded and walked straight to the seating area. Feiyu saw Qi Changgong quicken his pace slightly and lead the general to the middle of the front row of seats. 2 words popped up in her mind playfully, follower. But no matter how she thought about it, her face showed no expression. Everyone sit down. The general pressed his hand, looked at everyone, turned around and sat down first. Qi Changgong and Gu Jack, one on each side, also sat down with the general. Everyone sat down. The whispered exchanges that had taken place before the drawing of lots had disappeared. Feiyu stared at the back of the head in front of her, sitting upright. She had just been discussing with Shuang Tannen and the 3rd and 5th families next door whether it was better to build their own houses or have the resettlement project team help build them. Naturally, it was not convenient to discuss it anymore. Alice, she sat in the 2nd row. The warriors are with us. General Shroud took the stage and spoke succinctly. On behalf of the late hero Mr. Zheguangqing and his wife, Ms. Zhu Mianmian, I draw the permanent land they deserve after their loyal devotion and sacrifice of blood and tears on Luoyang Star. May Luoyang Star reward them with everlasting glory. General Shroud helped the Jie family draw plots for plots 31 and 32. On the municipal map of the Wao Plain, 2 blank plots near the Kabai Delta were immediately marked with their holders in red text, Zheguangqing and Zhu Mianmian. Feiyu looked up at the map. Even as calm as she was, she began to feel her blood boiling. Zhu Mianmian would love it, and if Zheguangqing knew, he would too, she thought. Straddling the delta and the Maya Alo Islands, plots 31 and 32 would overlook the Jie Basin. Next, it was Minister Zhang and his wife's turn to draw the plots. The results came out soon. They'd drawn lots 95 and 96, closer to Kainping Mountain but not at the foot of the mountain, making it a good spot nonetheless. Family number 3 went up. Wow, another good spot. There were still plenty of numbers in the number box. Next family, please come up to the stage to draw your lots. Mr. Shuang Tannen, Deputy Director of the Planning Department of the Mechanical Management Department, and Ms. Yan Feiyu, Deputy Director of the Safety Department of the Non-Human Lifeform Research Department, the loudspeaker announced. Shuang Tannen took her hand and stood up. Leaving the seating area, a robot greeted them with a beaming smile in front of the number box. Hello, Mr. Shuang. Hello, Mrs. Shuang. This step actually verified Shuang Tannen and Feiyu's identities and ensured they were wearing no inappropriate accessories when choosing their numbers, to prevent any influence on the results. Every couple went through the same process, even General Shruni. The plot drawing ceremony for the first batch of immigrants, as well as subsequent plot drawing ceremonies for other families who arrived in Shilin City, will be archived at the Luoyang Memorial Hall as part of the historical footage of the development of Xingxing. Hello, Shuang Tannen nodded slightly. Hello, Feiyu followed. The robot politely extended its hand to the number box, made a gesture of invitation, and moved aside. Shuang Tanin took Fei Zai's hand and continued to walk towards the number box. He first slowly extended his right hand, and after a while, he turned his head to look at Fei Zai. Fei Zai knew that multiple number plates had been sensed under his palm. She frowned, stretched out her left hand, and gently placed it on the back of Shuang Tanin's right hand. Some number plates were falling. In the end, the number plate that insisted on being sensed by both of their palms at the same time was their lucky number plate. After a while, the number box showed a string of numbers, 77 and 78. Odd for men and even for women. So separately, Shuang Tanin's plot is Unit 77, and Fei Zai's plot is Unit 78. No mistake, one poem, one release, one content, 1/6, one book, one bar. Take a look. Fei Zai couldn't help but look up and take another look at the big map. In the middle of the Wow Plain, slightly southwest, the grass was lush and a gurgling river flowed through it. It was absolutely beautiful, her permanent home. This gamble had finally paid off. She could earn her grandfather and father a share of Luo Wang's inheritance. Shuang Tanin examined the new mark on the map, then glanced at her, gently took her hand, and stepped off the stage. Fei Zai suddenly realized what was happening. She was so overjoyed that she almost lost her mind on the stage. Returning to her seat, she couldn't wait to open her personal communicator, ready to study the newly synchronized Wow municipal map carefully. Xiao Shuang, yes, General. Fei Zai was stunned for a moment, quietly closed the map, and raised her eyes. Family number 5 was being intercepted and inspected by robots. General Shruni in the front row suddenly twisted his neck and shouted in a low voice. Shuang Tanin immediately leaned forward and listened attentively. Qi Changgong and Gu Jack, who were standing to the general's left and right, naturally turned their heads to look at Shuang Tanin and Fei Zai. Is this your tank? General Shroud smiled slightly, his face looking very friendly. Yes, General. Shuang Tanin also smiled and whispered back. Feiyu had this thought in her mind, but she did not lose her politeness and immediately said, Hello, General. Good. General Shroud nodded, and after greeting Shuang Tanin, he continued, How is your work recently? The progress is not very fast, Shuang Tanin said honestly. Well, work harder, General Shroud said and turned his head away. This caused Feiyu to watch the lottery for family number 5, and she couldn't concentrate on it. Although she thought about it a little, she realized that General Shroud was asking about the intracavity manned robot project that Shuang Tanin had been busy with. But, Xiao Shuang? She glanced at Shuang Tanin. When did he call her Xiao Shuang again? Obviously, the nickname should belong to Xiaoan. Chapter 288 The first step of a new foundation. After drawing lots, everyone walked out of the roundhouse in a noisy manner. Shuang Tanin glanced at the crowd. Fei Zai, I saw the family on the plot next to ours. Let's go say hello. Oh, Fei Zai responded, her heart habitually admiring. Shuang Tanin quickly noticed which family drew the plots around them, and this impression lasted until everyone finished drawing lots, and he accurately located them among so many dazzling people. Hello, both of you. My last name is Shuang, Deputy Director Shuang. I've heard a lot about you. I was just thinking of finding a chance to get to know you, and then you came. My last name is Lin Hitchin, from the Science Department, and this is my wife Wu Yuan, also from the Science Department. We're assigned to Unit 75 and 6, right next to yours. From now on, our two families will be new neighbors, so please take care of each other. Of course, Shuang Tanin smiled and introduced Fei Zai to his new neighbor. This is my wife. Hello, Mr. Lin and Mrs. Lin. Fei Zai smiled cooperatively. They were secretly surprised. There were so many smart people. It seemed that the new neighbors had already remembered them. The two families chatted for a while, agreed to keep in touch in the future, and then separated. What should we do next? Feiyu suggested impatiently. Why don't we apply to leave the shelter and go to the plot of land to take another look? Community residents were not allowed to leave the shelter without permission unless it was necessary for work. But now, this rule has been relaxed for the first batch of relocation households. After everyone selected the plot of land, the Roundhouse Command issued daily travel passes to all members of each household to facilitate their travel between the two places and prepare for the move. Seeing her anxiousness, Shuang Tanin glanced up at the sky. It was only just past noon, and Brother Kyung was beaming. We still have time, he said. So, let's first select a tractor trailer and apply for a berth at Tongkiao Fortress. While the property management department is arranging the vehicle for us, I'll contact Dechen Huaisi and the others to see if they were available. I'll ask them about building the house and share the standard drawings the project team has provided. We'll then go to the land and compare them to get a better idea. Okay, Phase. I thought Shuang Tannen was an excellent manager. The two of them got in their car, not planning to return to their home in Section 13. Instead, they huddled together inside to access the property management application system. The relocation project team's efficiency was undeniable. At the meeting, they announced that each household would be immediately issued a tractor-trailer suitable for outdoor use. In such a short time, the property management system had actually opened up the application process. Previously, when they went out on field trips, they'd team up and ride in the Poseidon chariot. Relocated residents will live in Wau but will still have to go to Shilin for work, commuting through the wilderness. The route between Wau and Shilin passes through the vast Kyanping mountain range, and a dedicated SkyTrain is rumored to be under construction soon, ensuring greater directional control and safety. Even so, the relocated residents will still be traversing the authentic wilderness of Luoyang every day. The small, in-zone commuter vehicles currently provided to families within the community are clearly inadequate. In addition to providing future Wau residents with access passes, the relocation project team has also provided each family with a new outdoor vehicle. It's said to be comparable in performance to the field vehicle, though it holds fewer passengers, making it suitable for family commutes. In the future, if couples' commuting times don't match, they may be provided with an additional vehicle, but that's a future plan. The initial plan is for Wau residents to drive to Shilin for work, with each household allocated a long-term parking space at Tongkiao Fortress. The outdoor vehicles will then enter the enclosure and park at Tongkiao, while Wau residents will then transfer to regular commuter buses within the enclosure to travel to their respective workplaces. The off-road vehicle really looked majestic in outline, all in dark blue. But there was no choice, the color and style were fixed to this one, and in the future, different owners were not allowed to paint it with various patterns, perhaps to facilitate search and positioning when necessary. The application process was very simple. Shuang Tannen glanced at Feiyu, and seeing that she had no objection, he reached out and clicked the satisfied, "Get it now" button. On the projection screen, a car quickly drove out of the property management warehouse automatically, and under the gaze of the two, a circle of WoWo 7778 was engraved on the body of the car. Well, the family has one more asset. Feiyu thought, very satisfied. Shuang Tannen immediately took care of the second thing. Dechen, are you busy? No, I just watched you draw lots. Xia Ahu is so envious of you, and now she keeps complaining to me why I didn't insist on applying with you. It was obviously her who was fickle, saying she would apply and then not. Oh, what are you doing? On the projection screen, Yin Dechen jumped up and down, and only heard Feng Huo's fierce voice, "Let's talk about business, let's talk about business." Oh, okay. Yin Dechen smiled foolishly for mercy, turned around, and looked at Shuang Tannen who was holding back his smile. He was not embarrassed. The two families have been getting along for a long time, and everyone knows the personalities of the husbands and wives of each family. They are all used to it. He coughed. Tannen, I was just about to tell you that my boss in the department gave me a new task yesterday and added me to the WoW Standard Private House Construction Team as a supervisor. If you need anything for your new home, just come and see me. It's really a pillow scent when you are sleepy. Shuang Tannen smiled. Thank you so much. Feizi and I just discussed that we must come to you, and we are also going to send you a set of standard drawings so that you can give us your opinions in private. Now there is no need to take out the drawings. Dechen, Feizi and I think this way. We are both a little excited. We agreed at the beginning that we want to try to build it ourselves, but we have no experience and need expert guidance. Is that so? Yin Dechen quickly understood what Shuang Tannen meant. He was not surprised at all. Instead, he laughed and said, building it yourself is the best. I also told my Xiaohu that when my family gets the land, I will build her a house with my own hands. It will be 10,000 times more beautiful than a standard house. You just know how to brag, Feng Huo said angrily. I'm talking to Tannen about something important. Don't blame me later. Yin Dechen cast a fake glare to the side. Shuang Tannen glanced at Feiyu. She was listening intently to the video call between him and Yin Dechen with her eyes wide open. Noticing his gaze, she rolled her eyes twice. This made him want to laugh. He knew she must be worrying about whether Yin Dechen could still take on their family's private work. Although she was quiet, the meaning in her eyes was clear. She was asking him to press her. Shang Tannen glanced at her soothingly, then shifted his gaze to the projection screen. Dechen, this time the resettlement project team also allows families to build their own houses. People like me and Feiyu, who don't have the skills to build houses, can ask professionals to design and construct them. As long as our plans are submitted to the resettlement project team for approval, it's fine. He smiled and said bluntly, Feiyu and I originally wanted to ask you and Huaisi for help. Now that you are involved in the standard house construction team of the resettlement project team, can you still take on some private work for us? I want to take it, Yin Dechen shouted. Not to mention that we get along well as brothers and friends. I would work for you and Shuang Seozi for free. Even if you insist on giving me some benefits, I would also like it. After the first landing, for nearly 2 years, the entire conscription group implemented a unified allocation of materials. If they needed anything, they could apply for it. This made everyone's life, from clothing and food to travel and living, fall into the same pattern. The only slight difference between the houses, aside from Xiu Marie's casual attire or the small ornaments hung from their door lintels like Feizai's, was Mulela's monthly market. While the items sold there weren't particularly varied or spectacular, they were all sourced from their own belongings or crafted with their own talents in their spare time. They settled their accounts with star coins, and after the sales, the small sums were deposited into their accounts. There were no other personal financial transactions. This time, the relocation project team didn't publicize it publicly, but they had quietly opened a channel for private financial transactions after work. Feizai was quite oblivious, listening intently, her only concern now being the official launch of her new Luo Wang business, and whether the expert neighbors who knew her well could help her and Shang Tannen build a grand mansion. She hadn't yet considered the prospect of building a house, and her stagnant business, which she hadn't yet begun to thrive, and perhaps this trend would spark a new wave of activity. But I really can't do it. The boss of the department said that business is the most important thing now, and we who participate in the standard construction team will only build standard buildings for you. Yin Dechen sighed and thought for a moment. Tannen, if you have any design ideas, I will discuss them with you. Hey, when I am free, I will take a look at your land and talk about some construction matters. That's absolutely no problem, but I can't take your job seriously. You have to find someone to take care of it for you. You can ask YC. YC will definitely be able to do it. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Chapter 289 Small Town Boys and Girls. On the Ural planet, in the small town of Faxing, it was the twilight of early autumn. The wind blowing down the main street was a bit chilly, swirling here and there, yet barely disturbing anyone. The dilapidated buildings on either side were shuttered. It wasn't even time for the lights yet, so it was impossible to tell if anyone lived inside. A young woman got out of the car, glanced briefly at the deserted main street, then turned her head, her almond-shaped, dark eyes fixed on the 3-story gray building before her. On the mottled walls of the 3 hostels, within a large blue-black circle, were 4 bold characters, property for sale, but neither the circle nor the characters looked vibrant. Either constantly brushed by the spring dust, or occasionally battered by the summer rains, or more likely both. The words seemed as aged as the walls themselves, barely noticeable at first glance. The girl sighed, her brows furrowed. Another person got out of the car, a tall, thin man. His narrow, almond-shaped eyes scanned the gray house, and a sigh escaped his nose. Sissy, he glanced at his sister on the other side of the car. Let's go in. Fancy doesn't seem to be here, Yan Qingxi sighed, and just as he and his brother were about to step out the door, a loud, surprised call came from behind them. Dabu, Sissy. The two turned around and saw a tall, muscular man, about 10 meters away, carrying a large bag of something unknown, excitedly shaking it at them. Looking again, he saw his trouser legs rolled up, the collar of his black jacket open, and a triangular bandana tied around his neck, the kind worn by miners. He looked gray, yet full of energy. Fancy, they both shouted in unison. Fang ran over, and soon he was in front of the brother and sister, his smile widening. He panted softly, glanced at them, and punched Yan Qingjin on the left shoulder. You're back, Yan Qingjin shoved him without hesitation. The two laughed. Amidst the laughter, Fang looked at Yan Qingxi, and his lips pursed, his eyes still full of smiles. Sissy is getting more and more beautiful, Fancy, You are still the best at talking. Yan Qingxi pursed her lips, a little shy, but she was much more confident than before she went to Qikao to study. Fan Feng looked at her and teased, how do you feel after graduating from our Qikao girls' school, the top student? Great, no homework to do. Yan Qingxi raised her eyebrows, her smile clear and lively. Are we stupid? Why are we standing here talking in the wind? Yan Qingjin pulled his sister and Fan Feng together. Let's go. Seeing you guys makes me stupid, Fan Feng said cheerfully as he opened the door. As soon as we walked out of Aunt Kin's alley onto the main street, we saw a luxury car parked in front of our hostel. I was thinking, it's all over. Dabu and Sissy are coming back today. Some tourists took the wrong road and ended up here. Don't tell them you're staying here. We won't accommodate them today. But then I took a closer look and realized it was just Dabu and Sissy. As they spoke, the three of them stepped through the thresholds of 3 hostels one after another. Yan Qingjin looked around. Aside from 1 table and 3 chairs, all the other old tables and chairs in the lobby had been put away and leaned against the walls. Clearly no business had come in for a while. The table and the bar behind it were spotlessly polished, revealing the natural luster of the aged wood. Fancy, thanks for looking after me, he thanked her. I brought you a little something from Qikao. I'll give it to you later. See if you like it. What is it? Fan Feng tilted his head curiously, pushing it towards Yan Qingjin. What are you doing with all this? You're just back, what else are you bringing? A handkerchief from Qikao. Sissy picked it out. The same style as mine? Yan Qingxi smiled softly beside him. I just picked it randomly. Fan Feng glanced at the 2 siblings, grinning. A handkerchief Sissy picked out must be beautiful. Night fell over the small town of Faxing. At the end of the main street, the 3 inns, unusually, lit up several rooms upstairs and downstairs. Fan Feng heard footsteps and put down the blue handkerchief in his hand. Turning back, he saw Yan Qingxi coming down the stairs, now dressed in a new outfit. The soft gray hem of her skirt fluttered like a breeze on the steps, the coating faded with age. He immediately broke into a white smile. Sissy, I'm watching your graduation speech. Wow, how come you're so impressive? Fancy, you just love to tease me. Yan Qingxi pursed her lips and hopped down the last step. Seeing her brother and Fan Feng sitting in the lobby, both turning their heads to look at her, her face instantly flushed. Naturally, she tucked her toes in, slowing her stride to the standard required by the etiquette teacher at Qikao Girls' School, and walked gently into the hall. Brother, you've already shown Fancy my graduation ceremony in such a short time, she said angrily. Fancy wanted to see it. It's not like I was showing off, Yan Qingjin said quickly, winking at Fan Feng. But Sissy is impressive, isn't she? Incredible, Fan Feng nodded vigorously. Yan Qingjin's face had grown darker and thinner from his recent busy schedule. Now, his face was filled with pride, and he kept teasing his sister. Fancy, I really want to show off. I didn't dare say anything in Sissy's school, even though Sissy was a representative of outstanding graduates. Her classmates were from the same school after all, and they were all awesome. But I tell you, Fancy, on the way I picked her up, I really wanted to tell others that this is my sister, and my sister graduated with honors from Qikao Girls' School. Brother, Dabu, you must not have said that. You are the most stable, Fan Feng teased while standing up and pulling out the chair next to him. He wiped it clean with his palm deftly, raised his eyes and said to Yan Qingxi attentively, Sissy, come and sit down. I have wiped the whole store clean. Fancy, you take care of this store so carefully. My brother and I want to thank you. You shouldn't be polite to me. Fan Feng pretended to glare at Yan Qingxi, and then laughed. You are awesome, and now you are the best among the 3 of us who have obtained a diploma. If I were Dabu, I would have lost my composure long ago and had to show off all the way. Brother, see, Fancy is making fun of me again. Fan Feng smiled, and after Yan Qingxi sat down on the chair next to him, he also took a seat. His eyes fell on the blue handkerchief in front of him. The light from the lobby shone down on the handkerchief, which seemed to be covered with a layer of smooth luster, and looked high-end and gorgeous. Sissy, thank you, Fan Feng said, putting his hands under the table, rubbing them vigorously a few times, and brushing off the non-existent dust on his hands. Then he picked up a corner of the handkerchief with his thumb and index finger, and shook it to express his gratitude to Yan Qingxi again. Fancy, do you like this color? My brother's is gray. If you don't like it, you can exchange it with my brother. Chapter 290 The Place Where the Evil Princess Stays. I like it very much. However, such an expensive and good thing, I probably wouldn't dare to use it normally. Fan Feng pointed to the old gray cloth wrapped around his neck and said, those people in my team are very rough. When I pass by, they will throw a handful of minerals oil in my face and make me look like ashes. Fanzi, are you still mining? Yan Qingzi frowned and asked with concern. Oh, I am still. Fan Feng scratched his head. That's how you get by. Yan Qingjian glanced at him, opened his mouth to speak, thought for a moment, and suppressed the words. This time he went to Maman to do some business at the Citizen Service Center, and then took the contract exam to attend his sister's graduation ceremony. It has been nearly half a year since he left Ural. His sister was just washing up upstairs, and he and this childhood close friend had just reminisced about their farewell. He didn't rush to talk about other things at this moment, and continued the topic that was previously interrupted and asked, Fanzi, is there still no one asking about this store? No. I almost took over a business, but I was in the mine at the time and didn't know, so the business ran away. Fan Feng said apologetically, for so long, I haven't done any business for you, and I haven't recruited anyone to take over your store. Instead, I've been living here for free. What do you mean by living here for free? Yan Qingjian sighed. I don't know how broken this store is. Thanks to you for guarding it for me, otherwise it will be even worse. Yan Qingzi listened to the two of them talking with a gentle smile on her face, just like before, relying on her brother to arrange all the household affairs. She just kept her black eyes open, quietly, and didn't interrupt. Fan Feng glanced at her, then turned to Yan Qingjian. Dabu, Sissy has graduated now, so what are you going to do? Are you going to just keep the store open? Of course not. Yan Qingjian was halfway through his sentence when there was a knock on the door. All three of them turned to look at the door, a little surprised. Who is it? Yan Qingzi muttered. Uncle Torre hasn't been feeling well lately. Could it be that little Torre wants to call me for something? Fan Feng frowned and stood up to check. As he walked into the hall, he suddenly remembered that little Torre had been with a tour group for the past 2 days and should not be at home. Could it be Aunt Qin? He thought, and opened the door a little. At the foot of the stairs outside the door, Malazi, with his sleek bald head, smiled. Fanzi, I see that the lights are on here. Our Dabu and Sissy back, Uncle Mai? Fan Feng shouted loudly, laughed, and completely blocked the crack in the door with his body. You don't sleep at all? You see other people's lights on, but your own home is turned off when it gets dark. Don't be so thrifty. Malazi was very thick-skinned. These few jokes would not easily divert his attention. He raised his foot and stepped onto the stairs. Relying on his familiarity, he reached out to move Fan Feng's body. Fanzi, why is the door closed so tightly? Don't do anything illegal. Uncle is doing this for your own good. After all, you are half a stranger now, and you should be extra law-abiding. You live in Dabu and Sissy's house, so you can't do anything inappropriate in their house. Hey, is Dabu and Sissy back? I saw 2 people at the door of the store during dinner. Fan Feng glanced at Malazi with disdain, holding on to the door without loosening his grip, and chatted nonsense. Uncle Mai, has your business been getting slower and slower recently? You sit at the door looking around every day. I'll talk to some brothers in my mining team later. If they need to replace any shovels or anything, I'll drag them here and exchange them at your shop. Uncle Mai, okay. Under normal circumstances, Fan Feng's chatter would really arouse Malazi's business acumen, but it was useless at this moment. Malazi responded casually at this moment, as if he was holding a bag of hot buns in his arms. His heart was burning, and his whole body was swaying vigorously. He insisted on breaking into the door to take a closer look, and he still kept talking about the 2 brothers and sisters of the Liaoer family. It looks like Dabu Sissy is back. Fanzi, why are you blocking the door? Dabu has become rich these years or something. He doesn't stay in town for long, and he came back so quietly without even saying hello to us neighbors. Is he afraid that we'll get jealous and ask him to lend him money? Uncle Mai, is there something going on? Fan Feng was guarding the door when he heard the voice. He turned around and saw Yan Qingjian standing next to him. He glanced at her and looked back. Yan Qingzi was no longer at the table in the hall. Yan Qingjian raised her lips at him, and he raised his lips too. He understood and simply stepped aside, letting Yan Qingjian step forward to deal with the situation. Oh, I said I wasn't seeing things. Dabu, you're really back, Malazi exclaimed exaggeratedly. Fan Feng retreated to the hall and sat back at the table, but he leaned back slightly and looked towards the stairs. He saw the upper half of a soft gray skirt on the landing at the corner of the stairs. He tilted his neck back again and saw Qi standing on the corner platform with her lips pursed. He immediately waved his hands vigorously, urging her to go up. Go and rest, he mouthed. Qi stuck out her tongue, smiled, nodded, and turned around briskly. Fanfeng watched the hem of her skirt disappear completely, turned around, and saw Qi still blocking the door and dealing with my lazy. He cursed in his heart, scratched his head, and had no interest in listening to my lazy's greasy nonsense, so he turned on the communicator. But of course he would not watch Qing's Kikao girls' school graduation ceremony at this moment. Even if the slightest sound of those scenes was heard by my lazy would not be worthy. Fanfeng clicked on the pile of scenic photos that Qi had just given him to watch. Dabu, what's wrong? Do you look down on Uncle Mai? I've been standing at the foot of your steps for how long? Can't you come in and sit down? Now that you're rich, you look down on people. My lazy kept talking, pretending to step into the house. Uncle Mai, you're really good at joking, Qi said with a stern face, suppressing his annoyance. How can I be rich? Can I come back if I'm rich? It's too late today. I need to rest. Let's talk about it tomorrow as neighbors. Dabu, what are you hiding? I saw you and Sissy driving back in her luxury car. Sissy was also dressed very beautifully. My lazy squeezed out a wretched frown and was about to ask what good business the two siblings had found, but saw Qing's face fall directly. The car is rented. Qing said, you can't even tell the difference between cars from a rental company? Go back quickly. The music in the hall started, and he couldn't help but look back. Fanfeng made a face at him. He forced a smile, turned back and said rudely, goodbye, then he closed the door without caring about my lazy standing outside. Fanfeng suppressed his laughter and gave Qing a thumbs up. One flawless poem, one post, one content, one book, one bar. Old and frail. Thinking back to when he and Dabu were young, they were disliked by my lazy. Whenever they passed by my lazy's shop, they would be cursed and yelled at. They hated and itched my lazy but could do nothing about it. Now, time has changed, they are both tall and strong, and my lazy can only jump outside the door and go back angrily. Qing curled his lips and vented all his anger towards the old lazy. The music sounded familiar to him, and it seemed to be wrapped in some deep human voices. What are you looking at? He walked back to the table. Fanfeng was about to answer, but his eyes were fixed on the projection screen, and he couldn't move his eyes away. The next moment, his eyes widened, and it was obvious that he was attracted by the picture on the projection screen. I'm here, a female voice with a smoky voice echoed in the lobby. Qing paused, and the sky in the song automatically reappeared in his mind. He didn't say anything, but still sat in his seat, leaning his hands on the table, waiting for Fanfeng to finish reading. Is this where the evil princess is now? Fanfeng turned his head for a long time, his mouth half open. Is it okay? Qing raised his eyebrows, smiling. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Perfection. Wow, it's so beautiful, Feng Huo said repeatedly, standing by the Huanai River. Across the river, wildflowers blossom brilliantly beneath the trees. This forest is so lush and green, Yukelu praised. Sister Shuang, we should keep the trees. Don't waste them. Feiyu was still undecided. It's okay if you don't want it. Feng Huo enthusiastically helped the merchants to calculate. Didn't it say that each family has full authority to decide on their own plot of land? If you don't want it, I think we can ask a species classifier to come and identify it, leave a few valuable big trees, and level the rest. Then your plots of land will be connected into one piece, and it will be easier to plan if they are leveled. In principle, each family has full authority to decide, but when you encounter a planned community of a certain area, you still have to report it and you can't level it on your own. It's all written in the land construction regulations. Yukelu estimated the area of the woods on the other side of the river. I feel that such a large forest must be reported and communicated. The migration from the Wao Plain was the first model for the residents of the Xiling Highlands to move out. Even those who were not connected this time had carefully read all the rules and regulations. Yukelu suggested, Sister Shuang, whether you are going to shovel it or not, you'd better find someone who understands species science to take a look. so as not to miss out on any good timber. The natural produce on each plot of land is family property. Yes, Feiyu nodded, feeling it was indeed necessary. She decided to have the species system automatically identify and screen them, and then have an expert review them again to ensure that there were no mistakes. Feng Huo turned her head and saw Feiyu's new car flying in the distance. She couldn't help but stamp her foot. Look, we're just watching seriously, while these men are busy test driving. That's right. Yukelu was also very embarrassed. Just now, Yin Decheng said that he wanted to experience the off-road vehicle, and Gu Huaisi had also enthusiastically agreed. My man's first time riding in this new car, and he's been urging Brother Shuang to give him more rides. He hasn't even said a word yet, even though he's been asked to come up with a plan. Fei glanced at the horizon. Her family's brand new off-road vehicle, the blue-black Volvo 7778, had just been delivered from the warehouse. It was swiftly circling the edge of their land, whizzing through smooth curves and suddenly flipping, as if performing a juggler's acrobatics. It was nothing like the steady pace it had taken on the way here with the three families just now. Perhaps without the woman in the car, Shang Tannen had freed up his hands and let the two neighboring men experience the performance of the new car. Looking down from the sky gives you a better view of the entire land, Fei smiled. As the host, she said sincerely, as is customary, Brother Yin and Brother Gu, for sacrificing their rest time to help us survey the land. We're so grateful. What's the big deal? Feng Huo and Yukelu responded politely. Feiyu was walking on the ground, leading the two neighboring women along the Huanai River. The breeze from the river blew on her cheeks, bringing a natural fragrance of grass and water vapor, which was extremely refreshing. Her family's land, except for the large clump of trees on the other side of the river, was flat wild grass. At this time of year, the grass was as high as the knees, and from a distance it looked like a gorgeous sea of flowers, occasionally dotted with a few shrubs. It was vast, vivid, and graceful, and it seemed that any place could be described with a beautiful adjective. Her family's off-road vehicle was circling above the sea of flowers and under the blue sky. It was so beautiful. Feiyu remembered Shuang Tannen's instructions. Even though she was extremely refreshed, her heart was extremely happy, and her feet were full of energy. She did not take Feng Huo and Yukelu to the sea of flowers. She only led them to visit along the sparsely grassed riverbank. Shuang Tannen said to take the neighboring sisters-in-law to walk on a good place and not to hurt or tire anyone accidentally. Shuang Tannen drove, occasionally circling the three women's heads. Feiyu knew he was worried. After a while, perhaps they had seen enough from the air, he swooped down. The dirt bike schemed across the river, carving a path. White water swirls from under the car, scattering to the shore, startling the three women strolling, but not splashing them. Feiyu and the other two stopped, but the car couldn't stop immediately. It slid past them, gliding along the Huangji River, into the waterway, and hidden by the sea of flowers on both sides. Feiyu turned her attention back and glanced sheepishly at Feng Huo and Yukelu. She guessed Shuang Tannen hadn't fully mastered the new car's performance yet, and he almost hit the neighbors' faces. She was thinking of apologizing when she saw her new car float up from the river in the distance, turn, and suddenly descend into the sea of flowers. A moment later, it burst out of the sea of flowers and landed in front of them again. This car is difficult to park. It has to go around in a circle before it can stop steadily, Fei complained inwardly. The wings of the car were raised, and Shuang Tannen had no time to stick his head out and shouted, Fei, we have found 3 places to build a house, you pick one. Back in the Highland Protective Shield that day, Shuang Tannen booked a table in the cafeteria of the Community Activity Center to entertain the Yin and Gu couples. At the dinner table, Gu Huaisi readily agreed that if he reported to the unit and had no objection, he would definitely come to build a house for the merchant as the chief engineer, and Yin Decheng also agreed to recommend several sets of house drawings for the merchant. The host and the guest were very happy, and Shuang Tannen and Fei returned to the number 1 dome house in section 13. After a busy day, the sky was full of stars. They sat under the west window and summarized the matters. YC said it's free, but we can't really do it. I'll ask other immigrant families who are interested in building their own houses to see how they plan to do it. In any case, I think the contract should probably be signed. As for the cost of hiring people, we have to listen to how other families estimate it. We can't let YC suffer a loss, Shuang Tannen said as he wrote it down in his workbook. Feiyu nodded and added, We'll ask Mr. Gu to finish the main frame of the house, and we'll do the interior ourselves." Shang Tanin looked up from the workbook and smiled. Of course, the delicate decoration of the interior of the house is not easy to trouble YC, the great engineer. "We will do it slowly ourselves. It will take a little longer at most." Feiyu was relieved. She and Shang Tanin had to spend more time on room allocation than other families. She didn't want others to interfere in this regard, lest they find out. "I'll ask Chief K from our non-human department to introduce a species expert to confirm everything on our plot, so that the plot management plan we made can be approved in one go. In addition, I'll also ask experts to confirm the overflow data at the Huanai River during the flood season. Chief K and Teacher Chan know a lot of people in the science department and the geography and climate department, so there will be no problem asking them." "Okay, then you take care of these two things." Shang Tanin thought carefully and instructed Feiyu, "You go and ask Chief K and Teacher Chan and others if Xiu Mo is free to have a meal together next time. We will still treat you to a meal in the community cafeteria to express our gratitude. We have started station observations on the Wishuwili Peninsula, so Chief K and Teacher Cha may not be free." Feiyu answered casually, glanced at Shang Tanin, and changed the subject. "Okay, I'll ask." Shang Tanin smiled and nodded. "If they're not available, we can wait until the mansion is finished and treat them together. It wouldn't be rude," she muttered. "Okay." Shang Tanin still suppressed a smile. Feiyu's fumbling and learning attitude in dealing with people always amused him. He looked out the window at the night and pulled down the curtains. "Let's leave it at that for today. Let's wash up and rest. Next, we'll wait for Dechen and Huaisi's design sketches." Fixu hummed, raised her eyes, hesitated for a moment, and discussed, "The several places Mr. Yin and Mr. Gu picked for us to build the house are all good, but I like the one by the river the most. If the river overflow data doesn't have much impact on the house, can we give priority to the riverside?" "Okay," Shang Tanin agreed without hesitation. Remembering that the backyard of Fixu's ancestral home in Mamen was also crossed by a small river, he looked at her, guessing that she missed home, and his voice softened a little. He simply said, "Then let's build a house by the river." Fixu glanced at Shang Tanin. "Do you have a favorite place?" "No, anywhere on our own land is fine." Shang Tanin's eyes lit up with a smile. "Let's decide on the riverside." Fixu lay on the bed, thinking about their big house, and it was time to start construction immediately. She heard the soft breathing coming from the direction of the floor, and knew that Shang Tanin was still asleep. However, the two of them habitually adhered to bedtime rituals, generally refraining from speaking until they were sound asleep. Moonlight streamed across the curtains like flowing waves. Feiyu slowly mentally formulated her design ideas, preparing to combine them with the sketches that Yin Dechen and Gu Huaisi would soon send, selecting the best possible inspiration. For both her and Shang Tanin, this was the first house they had built with their own hands, so of course, it had to be perfect. Chapter 292 Preparation. In the days that followed, Feiyu and Shang Tanin devoted their after-get-off-work hours to planning and building their own plots of land. Unable to come up with a particularly creative plan for the vast sea of wildflowers, they decided to follow the crowd and, for the first year, participate in the Ministry of Agriculture's Family Seed Farm program. After preliminary research and screening, dozens of native luau and crops have passed the highest safety certification for human cultivation and consumption. Pilot projects for large-scale cultivation have begun at various breeding farms established outside the Shillin Highlands. The Family Seed Farm program is a supplementary agricultural program that complements the Ministry of Agriculture's regulated breeding farms. Crops cultivated on private plots can be selected from the Ministry of Agriculture's recommended varieties. Seedlings are distributed based on the plot's acreage. Household owners must attend a home cultivation training course and, once certified as a grower, can sow seeds at their own pace. Each season's harvest, after deducting the minimum contribution for each variety, returns all profits to the beneficiary farmers. Land planning became much simpler. Feiyu and Shang Tanin marked the plots of land on the north and south banks of the Huangji River, bordering the woods, for residential use, while the rest was designated as a family seedling area. That portion would automatically be submitted to the Ministry of Agriculture for assessment. They simply needed to level the existing vast expanse of weeds and flowers, conserve the land, and await technical guidance from the Ministry of Agriculture. The real priority was building the house. Having never built a house themselves before, they had no idea how many details and concerns were involved. This was new, there were no templates in luauing. Because all building materials had to be applied for and settled in the material system on behalf of the relocating families, Gu Huaisi had long suggested to Shuang Tianan and Feiyu that they adopt a labor-only contract model common within the alliance. This meant that his side would be responsible for design and construction, while the required materials would be provided to the host family in batches as construction progressed, and the host family would prepare them in advance of the required time frame. Gu Huaisi was a very dedicated person. After inspecting the merchant's land, before Shuang Tianan and Feiyu had even drawn up a contract, he had already produced a design drawing, along with a construction plan and a bill of materials. Feiyu had been reciting the names and codes of various materials these days. Gu Huaisi had mentioned that all the materials on the bill of materials he had attached were guaranteed to be available in the Luoyang material requisition system. This single sentence made Feiyu nervous. 2 Luoyang years had passed since the landing, and the supplies brought by the Chuxi were not inexhaustible. In fact, perhaps more than half had been consumed. As for the specific proportion, Feiyu naturally had no idea. She didn't worry about it, as there was a dedicated group to take care of that. But the problem was that she now had some creative ideas for her new house, both inside and out, and if she wanted to add them to Gu Huaisi's design drawings, she would sometimes have to change the attached bill of materials. Twice. When she tried to inquire about the Luoyang material requisition system, the system regretfully suggested that she cancel the application, and another time, the system provided alternative materials. So, Feiyu spent a whole day pondering her own clever ideas and wondering if they could be implemented. She finally realized how efficient Gu Huaisi really was. Experts are experts after all, and their thinking was so smooth from idea to specific materials. The Roundhouse Command gave the relocated families a 3-month transition period. Several families who had originally been excited to build their own houses soon had the same worries as Feiyu. They found that worrying too much and reportedly applied for the WoW construction team to take care of the entire project. The WoW construction team received over 40 applications, and Yin Dechen was almost overwhelmed. After a few days of wavering, it was finally decided that only 15 families were still willing to try to build their own houses. The new neighbors on plots 75 and 76, Lin Hicheng's family, who worked in the science department, also changed their minds. Originally, the two families agreed that if they both built their own houses, they would inevitably have to visit the plots frequently to follow up on the construction. So, they decided to go together so they would always have someone to keep them company. Now it is no longer possible. The Lin family has chosen one of the several standard styles launched by the WoW construction team, and plans to move there in 3 months without any worries. Feiyu was slightly disappointed when she heard Shuang Tianan talk about these things, and nodded calmly. Then we will go by ourselves, only when you do your best can you do your best, so she is not afraid of temporary troubles. She and Shuang Tianan were busy together. After get off work, Shuang Tianan often went out, sometimes to visit the Yin family, sometimes to find other professionals, and sometimes to communicate with other immigrant families about the latest progress. In short, he was responsible for almost all external contact matters and reported to Feiyu when he got home. As for Feiyu, except for asking colleagues in her own department for help, she handed all other requests to Shuang Tianan with confidence. Every day after get off work, she sat under the west window and immersed herself in overall planning. With her experience in deploying defenses at the Wishiwili Peninsula Observation Station, and her extensive knowledge of the mansions in the upper 3 districts when she lived in Mamen, she was simply full of inspiration. On the large framework blueprint designed for them by Yin Dechen and Gu Huaisi, she added some useful details here and there, and almost perfected the specific decoration of every corner of the future mansion. Every day when Shuang Tianan came back, he would sit by the west window, and it was time for the two of them to discuss and decide things together. After listening to the progress of his contacts outside, Feiyu told him about her new ideas, glanced at him, and waited for Shuang Tianan to express his opinion. Shuang Tianan never said no. So things were discussed very quickly. The main part of the new home on the Wao Plain was determined to be located on the south bank of the Huangji River. They retained the grove on the north bank of the Huanai River, and Feiyu planned to enclose it in their backyard. They planned to build a semi-open bridge across the river. It would be folded into a floating board on the south bank, serving as an observation deck and also for monitoring water flow. This would be used as residential observation data for the Huangji River and incorporated into Luoyang's global geoclimatic observation system, fulfilling the social watchdog obligations of the WoW migrant families. When needed, the bridge would be extended to the north bank, making it easier for Feiyu and Shangtanen to cross the river. The woods on the north bank were quiet, and she was thinking of choosing a tree there and building a tall tree house. It can be used as a lookout, and the signal can be integrated into our access control system. We can also go up there and sit and look at the fields. Feiyu glanced at Shangtanen. Shangtanen smiled. Okay. Do you want to build a tree house yourself? I can. I have experience. Feiyu was delighted to get this task before she even started. She had been worried that Shangtanen wouldn't be interested in the treehouse. Now another detail had been agreed upon. The two of them were busy preparing. A few days later, the Ministry of Construction officially announced the list of individual architects eligible to undertake private home construction work, helping inexperienced families ensure critical safety and quality assurance. Gu Huaisi had already reported to his superiors and received a proficiency review and professional ethics training for outsourcing work, successfully making the list. Shangtanen no longer needed to worry about the contract format. The Ministry of Construction had introduced a template for individual home construction to facilitate the public. He left work early one day, brought Feiyu, and the two of them visited the Gu family home. Amidst Yukalu's cordial greetings, they enthusiastically signed the contract with Gu Huaisi. Feiyu ate candy given by Yukalu while Shangtanen and Gu Huaisi discussed the fees. She and Shangtanen had already agreed at home to pay the maximum fee set by the Ministry of Construction for individual architects, allowing Gu Huaisi, an expert, to focus on their new home. It seemed Gu Huaisi was adamantly refusing to accept the offer. It sounded like he only wanted the lowest standard fee, and he might even give them a discount. Feiyu continued to eat candy. After Shangtanen and Gu Huaisi had talked for quite some time and finally agreed on a middle price, she stood up with a smile. Shangtanen asked her to say goodbye to the Gu couple. He saw her eyes quickly droop a little, and her face was slightly embarrassed. He also took a look. She had eaten a lot of the candy on the Gu family's plate, and the bottom of the plate was almost empty. Everyone is too polite, he chuckled as he stepped out of the door. Feiyu glanced at him and said, yes, the negotiation was not straightforward, she commented in her heart. In fact, she expected that the two sides could only agree on a middle price from the beginning. However, Shangtanen handled all the external affairs, so she did not say anything. Just following him, she unknowingly ate a little too much candy. After all, if she didn't eat candy, she wouldn't be able to do anything by sitting beside him, right? The night light was bright and clear around them. Feiyu and Shangtanen walked towards their car, feeling very relaxed. Everything is ready and construction will start on her house tomorrow. Chapter 293, Bident. On July 7th, the second year of the Luoyang calendar, it was a sunny and warm day. Feiyu was sitting at the control station of the WoW 7778 off-road vehicle when she saw a group of people coming down the hallway of Qi Fortress. A Poseidon chariot slid out of the large garage next door, and the group entered the cabin one by one. You have a toolbox. Do you want to load it now? A prompt popped up on the vehicle control screen. Received, she said, and caught a glimpse of a figure running briskly out of the hallway. She breathed a sigh of relief. If Shangtanen didn't come soon, she was afraid that the WoW construction team going out to work would leave them behind and leave first. Of course, this was nothing. However, at this stage, a single-family off-road vehicle out of the area would require Qi Fortress to assess its travel safety, and sometimes it would have to wait for it to be re-equipped with escorts. The process was more complicated, so being able to join the larger team was much more convenient. Let me drive. Shangtanen walked around to her position and gestured. Feiyu simply tilted her head and leaned towards the passenger seat next to her. Come and sit down. Shangtanen did not argue, but quickly walked around to the other side and jumped in with a smile. What tools did you prepare? Aren't they difficult to borrow? Feiyu watched a large toolbox move along the transport track to the top of her family's off-road vehicle, and then it was embedded in the back of the vehicle with a click. Not really, there are too many people giving advice, Shangtanen just explained casually, and the car control screen seemed to have grasped the natural short pause in his tone, and a face suddenly flashed in. Wow! Feiyu's eyes flicked up, and Shangtanen leaned in slightly, smiling naturally as he replied, yes. His rich voice was as gentle as the ripples of a lake. WoW construction and the security team are ready to depart. Wow 7778, please follow closely. If there are any unexpected situations along the way, please feel free to contact us. Okay, the car control screen then went silent. Feiyu and Xiang Tannen exchanged a glance, and she curled her lips slightly. Was he out today? Yes, Xiang Tannen found Feiyu's expression amusing, but he kept it to himself, never commenting on Feiyu's past. Oh, Feiyu nodded. For the past 2 years, she and Qi Changgong had seen each other frequently, especially at Tongqiao Fortress. Due to their work, their encounters were not uncommon. Tongqiao Fortress held periodic security entry and exit summary meetings, and she attended them as an observer and had even heard him give several presentations. It was strange. Many people, like Feiyu herself, had become increasingly relaxed as they gradually adjusted to and became familiar with Luo Wang. But why did Feiyu feel this man was becoming more and more reserved? Perhaps he was growing impatient with the increased workload? Feiyu had heard that with the launch of the Wao resettlement project, a portion of the guards would be assigned to garrison the Wao plains with a first wave of residents. The construction crew was not only building houses for the relocated residents, but also the Wao Municipal Service Center and guard barracks. Will he go to garrison Wao? She started her own off-road vehicle and smoothly followed the Poseidon chariot ahead, lining up at the exit, chatting casually. I don't know, Xiang Tannen smiled. I don't think it's permanent. The guards usually rotate? Feiyu wondered what Xiang Tannen meant by the latter part of his sentence. She wasn't afraid of anyone. Enemies often meet on narrow paths, but she wasn't one to complain. Today was a beautiful day, and her family was breaking ground on their house. Those who had opted for the all-inclusive package had similar designs, and only a lucky few had gotten their turn early. The construction crew had begun work, but it was done in batches, with one foundation being built, and the next day, the walls, like the modular components of a community dome. Most families were still anxiously awaiting the construction crew's schedule. Feiyu and Xiang Tannen had decided to start work on their own today. The neighbors in the area all said that breaking ground was a big day, one that demanded some ceremony. Thinking this was the case, the two of them both took half a day off. What were you going to say about the tools? Who's giving us advice? Feiyu glanced away from Qi Changgong and asked about her own affairs. Lately, there have been so many enthusiastic people, always asking about your house's progress. When they heard about the groundbreaking, they became excited and tried to help recall the practices of their home planets so that Feiyu and Xiang Tannen could learn from them and experience the joy and good fortune. Feiyu and Xiang Tannen, two authentic Maman people, had been studying all the way and had no exposure to Maman customs in this area. They had also heard about the various practices of other aliens. The two were quite confused. By the end of last night, they had not yet discussed a set of rules. They only knew that they had to use some handheld tools to connect with the earth, to feel close to their homestead, and to ensure prosperity and safety in the future. Although they knew it was just a metaphor, the metaphor was so beautiful that they thought that in Luoyang, a remote place like Luoyang, where no human habitation had been built since ancient times, they should also organize a ceremony to make themselves beautiful. So Xiang Tannen went around early in the morning to collect handheld tools for people. They were rare and there were very few places to borrow them. He was about to answer Feiyu's question, but as if it was calculated, the car control screen suddenly lit up, and it beat him to the punch. This time it was Yindechen. Tannen, Xiang's wife, you are breaking ground on your new house today, but everyone is at work and no one is here to watch the ceremony. Our team just talked about this, and we said that since we are all going to Wao, why not stop at your land together first, watch the ceremony, and then go to the construction site to start working. Do you welcome it? Absolutely welcome, Xiang Tannen said with a hearty smile. Will it delay your progress of the project today? No. Yindechen clapped his hands. Then it's settled. Let's go to your place together first. After the image on the car control screen disappeared again, Feiyu looked at Xiang Tannen. Have you thought about our ceremony? Not yet. Xiang Tannen smiled and touched his forehead. Let me think about it. Let me think about it. What did the construction team do when they started construction for other people's houses? Dechen said it's simple. Take out the power of attorney and the homestead mark and check them out. If someone from the host family is present, both parties should exchange pleasantries. If no one is present during work hours, Xiang Tannen interjected, most people don't show up, and everyone waits until the new house is completed before taking possession. He continued, Then the construction team leader will mark the construction site, announcing the start of construction on such and such a house on such and such a date. That's basically it. Then let's say construction starts on my house on this date of this month of this year, Feiyu inquired. What do you think? Shang Tenin pondered for a moment, then discarded all the various groundbreaking rituals he'd been taught. He laughed and said, okay, the Poseidon chariot truly headed straight for the various plots. Feiyu glanced over and saw that the escort team had also arrived. The first person jumped onto the grass, turning his head slightly as if in professional habit, glancing around. Captain Qi, everything is still uncultivated and very crude. Please forgive me, Shang Tenin said, smiling. Qi Changgong snorted, a faint, wild breeze seeming to quickly carry the sound away. He retracted his gaze, a smile on his face, and said politely, Deputy Director Shang, your family has been allocated a good piece of land. You're starting construction today, and I want to congratulate you. By the way, Gujie also asked me to congratulate you for him, as he has an assignment elsewhere today. Thank you, Commander Qi, and thank you, Commander Gu, for your concern for such a small matter. Feiyu saw Shang Tenin and the members of the guard construction team busy with their business, so she opened the toolbox herself. The sight of it stunned her. She couldn't help but glance up at Shang Tenin, who was not far away, thinking that he must have been so lost by the advice of his enthusiastic colleagues and neighbors that he had gathered every possible tool. In this box, pickaxes, shovels, hoes, and rakes were almost all there. Tenin, she paused and called out. You called me. Shang Tenin stopped chatting and smiled embarrassedly. We have set a time at home. We heard it from others. We don't know anything and just messed around. Thank you all for coming to liven up our atmosphere. He clasped his fists to everyone and walked quickly towards Feiyu. The auspicious time has arrived, Feiyu reminded in a low voice. I know. Shang Tenin didn't stop for a moment, reaching out to the box, his eyes scanning. Which one? Feiyu's eyes stared at him with clear black and white. This one. Shang Tenin's hand fell on the thick-handled shovel and he chuckled. Some are from the workers' exhibition hall. I borrowed one of each. No wonder there are so many varieties and they are all brand new. Feiyu knew that the workers' exhibition hall, one of the branches of the memorial hall that Luo Wang would use for historical education in the future, has slowly begun to collect the labor tools of the landing humans. In fact, so far, everyone has been using robots, and the machine tools are still okay. Generally, this kind of handheld tools are not needed, so they are all samples. Then we should use it carefully, she muttered. It's okay, they said to use it as much as you want, but it's better to use it until it's worn out. Shang Tenin smiled, took out the shovel handle, and looked up at the sky. The sky was blue and blue. The ribbon-like cirrus clouds that could still be seen in the Shilin protective shield in the morning now seemed to have scattered to the rivers and fields under the bright and shining light of Brother Kaiwang. The Huangji River was a strip of water, shining with white shimmering light. The gurgling sound of the water and the chirping of birds passing by in the distance echoed strangely. It's so beautiful today. He lowered his eyes to the brows of Feiyu, who was half raising her head and looking at him at the side of him. She was silent, but he knew she must be calculating the time. After a while, she nodded slightly at him. Shang Tenin received the prompt, smiled, took a deep breath, and dug the tip of the thick-handled shovel in his hand into the soil under his feet. Then, he pulled up the shovel and handed it to Feiyu. It's a bit heavy, he said. Yet, as a researcher who majored in scene simulation, Feiyu never disliked any tool. She took it, put some strength in her arm, and followed the tip of the shovel that was still covered with fresh soil, looking at the place where Shang Tenin had just landed the shovel, and dug hard an inch next to it. Shang Tenin reached out to help her steady the shovel handle. The two of them held the shovel on the left and right, facing the crowd. Behind the crowd, their 7 units of land were full of wildflowers and weeds, and they looked so happy and unrestrained. The second year of Luo Wang, July 7th, Shang Tenin raised his voice. At the time of the double dent, Feiyu added. This is an auspicious time. I don't know which neighbor suggested it, but the auspicious time should be announced anyway. Shang Tenin smiled at her sideways, waited for a while, and when she didn't say anything else, he continued. Yan Feiyu and Shang Tenin have started construction on their new house in Luo Wang, he shouted at the top of his voice. On the 7th day of the 7th month in the second year of Luo Wang, at the time of the double digits, Brother Qi used Luoyang to give beta and alpha the same angle and amount of light, symbolizing balance, unity of purpose, concerted efforts, and a happy family. Chapter 294 People on Earth. Customs didn't exist originally. Someone created one to express a meaning, and others copied it. Adding to it, details became more concrete, and before they knew it, it became a custom. Feiyu was sitting on the ground, having just finished writing a report on the use of shovels in groundbreaking ceremonies. The last bit of energy had finally run out. That's right, a report on the use of shovels in groundbreaking ceremonies. It was a bit frustrating. This was a tool-alone request from the laborers' exhibition hall, and the hall was urgently waiting for it. On July 7th, Shang Tannen went to the exhibition hall to borrow some tools. They used one of the shovels, dug a few shovels, and announced the start of construction on their new house. When the shovel was returned, the curator was quite polite. Shang Tannen offered to treat him to a meal as a thank you, but he graciously declined, saying it was nothing to worry about. Who would have thought that a few days later, just when Feiyu and Shang Tannen were busy, the curator would come to ask for a return. He said that many families would hold this groundbreaking ceremony, and he hoped that the merchants could explain in detail how to use the tools on that day, so that other families could have a reference. In the future, these instructions would be attached to the tools to save the curator from repeating them over and over again, fearing that some beautiful and important details would be missed. The curator also said that this report would eventually be reviewed and verified by the workers' exhibition hall. Once approved, it would be a collection document and would be exhibited from generation to generation, and would surely be passed down through the ages. Shang Tannen gave this opportunity to be passed down through the ages to Feiyu, saying that her scene-setting report was written in a clear style and he had great trust in her writing skills. He went to prepare the ground himself. Feiyu looked up and squinted his eyes to take a look. The sea of flowers had been pushed far away, like the tide receding in unison, revealing a pleasant open space. Shang Tannen was very efficient, Feiyu thought to herself. She soon found a vague figure on the edge of the wild grassland in the distance. Shang Tannen was still busy there. So, she lowered her head again and read through the shovel application report. She picked out a few spelling problems, made some corrections, and signed Shang Tannen in her own name very smoothly. Nowadays, many documents, such as land division confirmation documents and house construction contracts, require two names to be signed at once. She is used to it. Well, they can be passed down through the ages together. After finishing this, they can take a break for a while. She and Shang Tannen have been out for a day. The relocation project team is very humane. They give them 1 day of paid leave every week. As for which day, it depends on the work situation and the unit to discuss, and it is specifically used to arrange the recent relocation chores. Feiyu and Shang Tannen are naturally immersed in the foundation of their future home. Behind her, Gu Huaisi has helped them cut a layout on the surface and built a temporary fence. Unfortunately, Gu Huaisi was at work today, and the two sides did not run into each other. But it doesn't matter. Shang Tannen communicates with Gu Huaisi about the progress every day. The original contract stipulated that the construction scope was limited to the residential area. In reality, the individual architects in the construction department were restricted to the private residential area, and the construction team was not permitted to work on the areas designated for each participating family's homestay project. Therefore, Feiyu and Shang Tannen were responsible for weeding the vast grasslands beyond the courtyard walls, covering the various plots. They took advantage of their weekly family leave to visit their own plots and happily assisted in the construction work within the courtyard walls. Of course, until Gu Huaisi had completed the outline of their house, there wasn't much they could do, so they focused on the grasslands outside the walls. Although the temporary wall was right behind them, Feiyu was reluctant to lean against it, preferring to sit upright on the bluestone. The bluestone was the one outside the west wall of the current dome house in Shiling Highlands. The one Feiyu had intended for Shang Tannen to keep as a family heirloom still lay in the front yard of the dome house. So, wasn't this about moving? They first moved the inexpensive rocks to their permanent home, providing a convenient place for them to sit while they cleaned up. Feiyu sat on the rock, lazily contemplating her thin sweater. Brother Qiyong's radiance shone upon it. The regulations regarding protective clothing for field work have been relaxed. Furthermore, the Wao Plains will soon officially cease to be a purely wilderness area. This means that in the near future, Wao Plains will become the second settlement on Luoyang Star, After the first reach highlands, no longer considered a wilderness area, it naturally requires less rigorous protective clothing. In practice, the transition to WOW status will be gradual. It will first become a non-wilderness area for the initial WOW residents, and then gradually extend to the remaining residents within the first reach highlands protective bubble. Therefore, for Feiyu and Shangtanen, WOW Plains, like the first reach highlands, is a human community. They currently travel between the two areas, and at Tunkiao Fortress, there's no mandatory change into full protective clothing. Rather, they are encouraged to wear light clothing for commuting, wearing only the second-generation protective undershirts recently received from the logistics department. It's been almost 2 years now, and the design of the protective inner shirt has been improved. It has changed from the tight one-piece style used in the promotional video to the tight two-piece style now, which is more suitable for daily life. Of course, checking the protective shield in and out is still a necessary step. At the end of spring, the temperature difference between morning and evening is still large on the WoWo plain. Feiyu went out today and brought a thin sweater with her and put it on. At a certain moment, for a completely unclear reason, or for no reason at all, she smoothly put the lady's code of conduct somewhere else. She lowered her head and tugged at the sleeves of her sweater from time to time. It was similar to a kitten stroking its fur while basking in the sun. Some fine white particles bounced up and floated on the sweater. She studied it. Maybe it was dust. Take a look. There was dust in the holes of her sweater. Shangtanen stood up from the other end of the wild grassland. The long hours of tilling the land made his feet and back a little sore. Although there was a robot weeding, in order to pass the next pre-planting inspection of the Ministry of Agriculture in one go, he bent over all afternoon and followed the robot to take random samples for inspection. This unfamiliar farming work was both new and tiring for him. As he stood up, his sight left the dark brown soil particles, and the unremoved weeds in front of him jumped into his eyes with joy. It was really beautiful. The sky was blue, which made him take a breath subconsciously. He estimated the remaining workload, turned his head and looked at the house side by the Huangji River in a good mood, and saw Feiyu sitting in front of the courtyard wall. Shangtanen also decided to take a break, so he walked back. When he got closer, he saw those fine white particles fluttering in the air as she pulled her sleeves. The community's clothing quota won't be available for the foreseeable future after the homecoming festival. Feiyu, feeling weak, didn't move. She tilted her upper body at the shoulder, straining her other half. Are you tired? Sit down. Not tired, Shangtanen said, sitting down. He glanced at Feiyu's sleeve and said, the logistics department has a project to research local fibers. I heard it's progressing well, and the assistant robots have already provided many solutions. I heard that too. Feiyu gazed at the vast expanse of wild grassland in the distance, lamenting that it didn't contain the several varieties of grass the logistics department's fiber group had targeted for the project. Otherwise, she and Shangtanen wouldn't have to weed. She sighed. Now it's time for them to exercise their free will. Robots have free will, and with it come all sorts of unexpected ideas. Yes, Shangtanen smiled at her. Exercise them as quickly as possible, Feiyu muttered. Chapter 295 Look, I'll look. Feiyu didn't bring many clothes from Maman. While she rarely wore them, and only wore her work clothes, she felt like she was about to run out of clothes after landing. The community would periodically allocate clothing materials beyond work clothes, but they were very limited. Feiyu estimated that the community's stock of these materials was already limited. These livelihood resources were necessary, but not crucial. The Luoyang landing strategy planned to gradually utilize local resources. The entire resource utilization process consisted of 3 steps. In the initial stage, the Legion conducted extensive basic research and exploration, cataloging and building a database of local resources. This was the main achievement of the various landing units' field operations over the past 2 years. Subsequently, and currently, each unit has been intensively conducting practical research on human naturalization. In this phase, the robotic system combines Luoyang resource data with established empirical data from Alliance civilization, helping researchers rapidly develop innovative ideas and develop a large number of solutions. In the third phase, everyone will compare the effectiveness of the robotic solutions based on the results of actual naturalization. Oh, the free snacks offered in the cafeteria every Thursday and Saturday night in the Shellin Highlands community are often prototypes of food development robot fitting solutions. How should I put it? Feiyu had tried them many times, sometimes amazed, sometimes stunned. However, when asked for a feedback from the cafeteria, she didn't hesitate to write a paragraph or two. After all, she also hoped for continuous improvement, adding a touch of deliciousness to her Luoyang life. The local fiber project hadn't reached the stage for public trials yet. Feiyu tilted her head, surveying the land and wild grasslands in the distance, her laziness causing her to continue tugging at her sweater intermittently. She planned to sit a while longer to gather her strength before going to take over Shuang Tenen's shift. "Let's finish the South Shore area today, and then we'll tackle the North Shore next time," she said. "Yes," Shuang Tenen said with a smile. He hoped that in the near future, the logistics department would successfully distribute some local fabric to each family, so that when their mansion was completed, Feiyu would have beautiful Luoyang fabric to make new clothes and move into their new home. August arrived. The Wao Municipal Service Center and the Guards Garrison were completed, and 60 relocated families were summoned for the first community meeting on the Wao Plain. The new Wao settlement was divided into 10 sections, each consisting of 6 adjacent households. The daily management of community affairs was overseen by the section chief. Feiyu, who was in the process of handing over her position as section chief of the 13th Qinggong section to her current neighbor, Dagda, was appointed section chief of the 2nd section of the Central and Southern Wao section, taking office in September. Feiyu had intended to resign the new appointment at the meeting, but the meeting was packed, and the focus shifted to the September relocation. Each family raised various details, eager to communicate with the Wao Municipal Service staff, squeezing out the less than 3 minutes of appointment information. She swallowed. Considering the job requirements for section chiefs and the appointment letter, which were the same as those for section chiefs, she glanced at Shuang Tenen and fell silent. Shuang Tenen smiled, his usual gentle demeanor. Feiyu was more down to earth. She would just get on with the job, which meant she would visit the other 5 families once a month and go to the scene when they quarreled. That was 4 fewer families than the one she had to mediate for the section. At the meeting, she also learned a piece of news that wasn't too surprising. Qi Changgong and Cao Feiyu would also be the first to garrison the Wao settlement. The garrison camp was located on the easternmost side of the Wao plain, controlling the throat of the Kabai Delta and the outermost edge of the settlement. After the meeting, the other 5 couples from the second class of Zhongnan, including Feiyu's future neighbors, the Lin's Hicheng family, spontaneously gathered around Feiyu and Shuang Tenen. It wasn't time for her to take on the position of head of the group yet. Feiyu muttered to herself, then followed Shuang Tenen in greeting everyone with a smile. Head, we want to go see how our house is doing. Shall we go together? Since we're out today, okay. Feiyu and Shuang Tenen were going to their big house anyway. There was still a lot of work waiting for them. Everyone went together. Of the 6 households in the second grade of Zhongnan, only Fixu's family chose to build their own house. The other 5 families, to save trouble, handed it over to the Wao construction team. 3 households are basically finished, and 2 are scheduled later and are only half finished now. Fixu and Shuang Tenen used to come to Wao to work on weekends. They would always glance at the neighbors' houses on the way, almost watching them rise from the ground. Occasionally, they would compare the appearance of others and add some new ideas to their own houses. However, they had only seen the exterior before. Today, the owners of all households were here, and every family was very warm, inviting all the neighbors to come inside to visit and comment. Fixu was also very interested when she arrived at the courtyard wall. Guhuasi had already built the overall framework of the house for her and Shuang Tenen. The contract between the 2 parties was successfully signed, and she and Shuang Tenen were currently working on the interior decoration. The houses built by the Wao construction team for the immigrant families were completely covered inside and out. She silently and attentively memorized some reference points, while Shuang Tenen joined others in praising the host. Often when she turned her head to look at him and their eyes met, Shuang Tenen could understand that Fixu was interested in this and might be able to learn from it in her own house. No mistake. That kitchen basket must be a new item recently launched by the logistics department. It has never been seen in the community of Shilin Highlands. It should be woven with the bark of 1 or several native plants of tamarind. It looks so beautiful. It is placed on the storage grid. Although it is empty, it makes people imagine the abundant vegetables in the family farm in the future. Shuang Tenen nodded, and he thought it was good. Fixu quickly decided that she must add this basket to her kitchen. Arriving at another house, the 2 of them followed the crowd to the courtyard. Feiyu's eyes lit up. There was a fruit tree planted in the courtyard of this house. The Wowo construction team was very good at choosing. The tree they transplanted was already full of small green fruits, looking very lush and prosperous. She looked at Shuang Tannen. Shuang Tannen was chatting with others, and took the opportunity to raise his eyebrows at her and smile. Feiyu took a look and thought, oh, he doesn't think so. She glanced at the courtyard she had just seen and felt that Shuang Tannen was right. Forget it, the styles of the two houses are different. Her backyard is already connected to a forest on the north bank. If she added another tree in the courtyard, it would seem that the greenery is too piled up, which would be ugly. She quickly gave up the idea of planting a tree in the courtyard. They arrived at the home of a half-finished house. The couple, the owners, were a bit anxious. While the deadline was clear and they should have been finished by now, it didn't seem right. Furthermore, the September move was a done deal, so they sincerely asked Feiyu, the unappointed team leader, to help urge the Wowo construction team. Okay, Shuang Tannen readily agreed. He knew Yin Dechen, the team's supervisor, so a quick video call was all it took to confirm. Feiyu and I will also check with the construction team, he reassured the neighbors with a smile. Actually, building a house is pretty quick. Feiyu and I hired our own architect, not a full construction team. We spent some time on site with the architect and learned from his experience. With a thorough design and plan, building it is a snap. Don't worry, speaking of the merchants, every neighbor in Jili was curious about the results of their own construction, and now they all expressed their desire to come and see. Shuang Tannen and Feiyu, of course, led the group to their own home. Chapter 296. The husband and wife partners finished work. The Shuang family's mansion, a creamy gray exterior with two entrances, stood on a vast, neatly landscaped lawn, with a winding river and a forest at the rear. As soon as everyone landed, they were met with the usual exclamations of admiration they'd experience at other homes. It's still a mess inside, Feiyu said truthfully. Feel free to look around, but watch your step, Shuang Tannen said with a smile, opening the gate. The slab of turquoise stone, which had been used as a makeshift footstool outside the construction yard wall, had now been demolished, and Feiyu had used it as a stepping stone for the threshold, lying quietly beneath Brother Qi. Everyone crossed the threshold and followed Shuang Tannen and Feiyu on their tour. The entire house was indeed empty, with some rooms still cluttered with construction debris, but this didn't stop the enthusiastic neighbors from exclaiming in admiration. Even Feiyu, usually a rational thinker, couldn't help but believe in the true beauty of her half-finished house. The atmosphere was so lively that Shuang Tannen and Feiyu even took the neighbors from Jili across the Huangji River for a stroll through the woods on the north bank. The forest was quiet and peaceful, with sunlight filtering through the leaves and illuminating the winding paths. Near the river's edge, neatly stacked bundles of cut branches and vines were seen, the entire forest looking remarkably well maintained. In the center, a majestic tree quickly caught everyone's attention. What's that? A neighbor asked curiously, pointing to a rope ladder dangling from the tree. Feiyu wants to build a small tree house, and she just put up the planks. Really? Really? Everyone asked questions under the tree, praising each other for another round. The chatter was even more exciting than any previous visit to review a house. After viewing the house, the neighbors had little else to do, having entrusted the entire project to the Wowo construction team. With that, they announced they would gather and return to Shilin Highlands. Shuang Tannen and Feiyu had to stay and continue cleaning the house, so they didn't join them. They politely accompanied the neighbors to the gate, waved goodbye, and watched their wild convoy disappear at the end of the sky. Shuang Tannen glanced at Feiyu, who was thirsty, and suddenly laughed. Take a break before starting work, okay? Feiyu was relieved. She had explained too much today. The two turned around, stepped over the cloud blue stone, entered their new house, and closed the door. Feiyu walked directly through the main building to the kitchen door at the back, sat on the steps, and leaned against the porch column. Shuang Tannen followed her and smiled, leaning into the kitchen. The kitchen was only roughly cleaned up. Through the back door of the kitchen, the lush green lawn slowly flowed down and then to the Huangji River. Brother Qi was shining on the Huangji River, making it sparkle. The afternoon tide had not yet arrived. Shuang Tannen glanced at the wooden bridge over the river. The neighbors had left, but it had not yet been put away. He ignored it for the time being and took a cushion from the storage box, then took it out and gave it to Feiyu. Feiyu took it and put it behind her waist, separating the columns. It was more comfortable to lean on it now. Don't you want it? She tilted her head and looked at Shuang Tannen, who was sitting on the other end of the steps. I don't need it. Shuang Tannen leaned casually against the other column. The two were used to this. In the past, when they lived in the dome house in Qinggong community, they often leaned against the west wall, one on each side of the stone, watching the sunset and chatting about family matters or work. After the construction of the new house started, the two would sit on each side of the stone in the while during their breaks from work, resting and chatting about the progress. Now that the exterior of the house is completed and the interior decoration has begun, Feiyu put the most precious piece of Yunqing stone under the veranda in front of the kitchen door at the back. She likes to sit on it in her spare time, looking at her wide and empty courtyard. This allowed her to see both front and back. She could glance at the main building, and easily turn her head, peering through the doors and windows of the back buildings to see the Huangji River in the grove. She felt like she was commanding the entire situation. This location was ideal. The heirloom stone was securely placed here. Outsiders generally didn't enter the courtyard directly. If they did, as they did today, as they walked through the main building's banquet hall, their first glimpse of the courtyard would be the row of houses at the back. Who would notice the stone steps beneath the veranda? The most conspicuous spot is also the most hidden. The Yunqing stone, unearthed on the first day of the first month of the first year of Luoyang's reign, would become a family heirloom of the Shang family. It was perfectly safe to place it here. Sitting or stepping on it, it would be bathed in the sun and moon, nurtured by the passage of time. With age, the stone's color would be as lustrous as ever. Feiyu made this suggestion, and Shuang Tannen immediately agreed, delighting her. Now, she sat at the edge of her large rock, her feet planted on the tiles she had carefully selected from the material requisition system. Her mind and body were as relaxed and comfortable as the neat and clean courtyard before her. Brother Qi poured forth his energy without any obstruction, bright and clear, and her heart felt bright as well, dry, light and warm. It was a good idea to have no trees in the courtyard. The space was undivided and remained one whole. If the farm's output needed preliminary processing in the future, the courtyard would be convenient for it. Feiyu leaned against the pillars, thinking from the courtyard to the warehouse and tool room behind her, mentally reviewing her layout of these rooms. With only half a day left today, she would probably only take care of these few rooms. It would be too late to go to the main building. Let's get started. After sitting for a while, she wisely interrupted her rest and stood up to greet them. Shuang Tannen patted his knees and stood up with her. He had always been a good, no, the best work partner. Look, he smiled, and then went into the kitchen before Feiyu, and took out the work clothes they had stored in the storage compartment. In the afternoon, the two of them cleaned out the two warehouses and a tool room in the back. It's almost time, Shuang Tannen said. Feiyu nodded. The two took off their work clothes. The new house is fully equipped with washing facilities. Feiyu followed her work procedures and quickly washed the two clothes together carefully, making them as clean as new, ready for use next time. Shuang Tannen focused on checking the retraction condition of the small ferry bridge over the Huangji River in the backyard, and checked the access control of the entire house. The two stepped out of the door and looked back habitually. The house is their new foundation in the future, and they both care about it very much. They both want to take a closer look before leaving. The milky gray exterior wall, the vermilion door, everything is brand new and tidy. Then they smiled at each other and got into the car. Brother Qi had already landed in the Qianping Mountains to the west. A deep, vibrant glow crept across the summits, spreading across half the Wao Plains. It reached Shangji's plots of land, coating the newly tilled farmland with the softest twilight pink. Shuang Tannen circled the edge of the plot, while Feiyu carefully inspected it from midair. They completed all the necessary procedures for finishing their work. Then, Shuang Tannen expertly adjusted his course and flew toward Shiling Highlands. Chapter 297 Dusk on the Plain. The off-road vehicle careened through the twilight, chasing Brother Qi footsteps. The vast Wao Plain serenely let the sunset glow shift, painting casually across the carpet-like fields and the branch-like rivers. Occasionally, a bird or two would flutter beside the car, seemingly close yet actually far away. In this world, only Feiyu and Shuang Tannen's car were flying with the returning birds. Feiyu admired the scenery below, noting the houses of the passing families, wondering if the other families in Wao had probably gone home. The car was about to enter the Qianping mountain range, with mountains of varying heights approaching, and the plains and houses no longer visible. The sunset glow playfully retreated into the mountains beyond. The car's control panel suddenly flickered. Wow, 7778, destination Shillin Highlands. Due to a sudden thunderstorm in Abyss Valley, the protective shield has been immediately deactivated. Please change your route immediately and do not approach this area, Feiyu exclaimed, exchanging a glance with Shuang Tannen. The car automatically hovered, awaiting the two's decision. Go back home first, Shuang Tannen asked, his gaze scanning the mountains below. Or should we stop and find the nearest observation station to request emergency shelter? Thunderstorms were frequent in the Abyssal Valley during spring and summer. Sometimes, when field teams were blocked from returning, they would usually seek out a nearby observation station. Whether it was a research station directly established by the headquarters or an independent observation post established by a specific department, these stations would always be open to field personnel, allowing them to temporarily stay there. Sometimes, if luck was unfortunate and a thunderstorm raged all night, field personnel would be forced to spend the night at a station. Feiyu remembered that there were at least 3 observation stations within the Qianping mountain range. Before she could speak, the car control screen flickered again. Deputy Commander Shuang, Deputy Commander Yan, Qi Changgong's face appeared on the screen. Defense Chief Qi, Shuang Tannen nodded politely. Qi Changgong was now the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Division of the Wawanu settlement, with Cao Wenfei as Deputy Defense Chief. You've received a flight ban, he said expressionlessly, using a declarative tone. Received? We're considering finding a nearby observation post in the mountains to take shelter, Shuang Tannen replied. Feiyu remained silent. This thunderstorm will last a long time. There are only unmanned observation posts in Qianping Mountain, and no guards deployed. I suggest you turn back and return to Shillin tomorrow, Qi Changgong frowned. How are your houses going? Are they habitable? If not, you can come to our Qi garrison camp. We have a detachment stationed there tonight, which will ensure greater safety. Our houses are habitable, Feiyu's clear, cool voice interrupted. Shuang Tannen glanced at her and smiled across at her. Captain Qi, let's go back to our new home and take shelter for now. Are you sure we can return tomorrow? Wait until the alarm is lifted, Qi Changgong continued expressionlessly. We'll have someone come to your house later to assess the safety level. If it doesn't meet the standards, you'll have to go to the Qi garrison and squeeze in with everyone else. The car control screen faded. Shuang Tannen and Feiyu looked at each other. Her eyes were clear and distinct, very quiet and clear, but the corners of her mouth suddenly drooped, even noticeably puckered. Shuang Tannen immediately laughed. He had always pretended to know about Feiyu and Qi Changgong's old relationship. Whenever he met and talked with Qi Changgong, he would behave as he should, fearing that even the slightest awkward expression would irritate Feiyu and rekindle old resentment. Now, seeing her take off her ladylike face, he was stunned and laughed out loud without any courtesy. He was promoted, and now he's on his own, Feiyu muttered. He seems very unhappy. It's a promotion. Shuang Tannen nodded and gossiped with Feiyu. I heard from Gujie that whoever is willing to take the lead in guarding the new settlement will have his rank raised first, and several commanders of the guards are willing to come. He's quite ambitious. Feiyu paused and kindly changed the word, motivated. Shuang Tannen smiled again and stopped discussing Qi Changgong. He turned the scooter around. Let's go home. Feiyu quickly put Qi Changgong's unhappiness behind her. She had no new entanglements with this person who was married to her by mistake. If Qi Changgong saw that she was unhappy, it would not be her fault. She had to adjust her emotions by herself. We're staying in our new home tonight. This wasn't part of Feiyu's plan, but she wasn't concerned with the current conditions. Instead, she felt a surge of excitement. It's a good opportunity for us to experience it all and start arranging the main building. Okay, they discussed the situation in the car as they flew back, birds flitting outside. The world was silent and vast, the dusk pink quietly tinged with a soft gray. The reflections from the spiderweb-like riverbed on the plains weren't as vibrant as they were during the day, but instead took on a quieter allure. Feiyu didn't like looking at the real-world topographic maps in the car. Every time she traveled back and forth across the Wow Plain, she preferred to play a little game with herself, peering through the car window, forward and downward, distinguishing between familiar and unfamiliar areas among the vast, mottled expanses of land. She spotted the Huangji River along its course, and following its winding path, she soon spotted the spiky treetops and rounded canopies. The creamy gray exterior of her new house, nestled in the woods, was a tranquil sight. Huh? 2 cars suddenly emerged from behind the woods and circled over her new house in a cross pattern. "The guards have arrived," Shang Tenin said. "The efficiency is high enough." Feiyu pondered and got out of the car. She was a little depressed when she saw it. It was Qi Changgong who got out of the armored car of the guards, accompanied by 3 subordinate non-commissioned officers. "We have just checked the outside of your house. We still need to go inside to check." Qi Changgong said nothing more than a few pleasantries. He nodded to Shang Tenin and Feiyu and got straight to the point. Feiyu had just shown a group of neighbors around her home that morning, and this time, she felt a bit bored, so she let Shang Tenin take over. After entering the main gate, she said, "I'll go to the backyard, open the back door, and ventilate." "Okay, don't go to the river," Shang Tenin said naturally, turning around and greeting them. "Please, leaders. My house is simple. And I'm sorry for the inconvenience." Shang Tenin then showed Qi Changgong and his companions around, explaining the structure and layout. As Feiyu left the main hall, she glanced back. Qi Changgong, with a businesslike demeanor and a constant stream of questions, was following Shang Tenin upstairs. The upstairs rooms were still empty, and Feiyu curled her lips secretly. She followed them, then went into the large courtyard and found a chair in the kitchen. Qi Changgong walked around the upstairs rooms, pausing briefly at a window to peer out. "We're planning to build a treehouse, and we've just started." Shang Tenin followed Qi Changgong's gaze toward the woods. There, the canopy of the tree Feiyu had chosen for the treehouse was faintly visible, revealing the edges of the partitions. Qi Changgong turned and looked elsewhere. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Fireworks. Feiyu was busy in the kitchen. She thought that she and Shang Tenin would have dinner in the new kitchen today. Although it was just a simple meal of 2 nutritional supplements, it was the first dinner in the new house after all, so perhaps there should be some sense of ceremony. She called out the big dining table and took out a set of exquisite tableware that Guohuaisi gave her and Shang Tenin after completing the project, which symbolized the good fortune of opening a new home. Since there was no robot to serve her, she took a cleaning cloth and wiped the bowl carefully with her own hands. Then, she placed a dinner plate at one end of the dining table, just as she and Shang Tenin had done when they sat on either side of the small table by the west window in the dome house of Qingayan community. Feiyu stood at a distance to see the effect. The effect was really good. The small table by the west window had been sitting there for a long time, but this time the house was big, so she could use any size. This dining table is designed to be quite large, and the plates and utensils seem a bit sparse. It will be very suitable for a sumptuous meal in the future, but now. Feiyu looked around and decided that since they were officially using the kitchen for meals, they couldn't be stingy with this first meal. She had an idea, took a pair of small scissors from the tool storage, and went out the back door of the kitchen. Over there, Shang Tenin led Qi Changgong and others to inspect the main building, and led them to the courtyard, introducing, "The row behind us is mainly the warehouse, tool room, kitchen." His eyes paused, and through the back door of the kitchen, he saw Feiyu's back flash, as if he was wandering on the grass slope of the riverbank. Feiyu turned around from the grass rows, saw Shang Tenin in front, and smiled half a smile, but his eyes fell on Qi Changgong who entered the kitchen later, and the remaining half smile almost froze. Qi Changgong saw the hostess bending over, pinching flowers, holding a pair of sharp scissors, looking at him sideways, and she wanted to take back her smile. She paused for a long time before continuing to show it. Her eyes moved around him twice without any expression but clearly. Feiyu felt distressed. Her heirloom, the clean big stone, who knows how much it will be worth in the future, was stepped on by Qi Changgong. "Feiyu, you pick flowers?" Shang Tenin asked in surprise. Since there were outsiders around, he didn't ask more questions about why you were picking flowers. "I'll do it," he said habitually, walked out the back door, came to Feiyu, and wanted to take the scissors. "No, you accompany the guests." Feiyu looked at Qi Changgong and the subordinates behind him again, turned back, and with a pair of scissors, she cut off a bunch of grass roses neatly. Shang Tenin took the scissors, turned around and introduced with a smile, "Captain Qi, this is our backyard. It's very simple, Just a grassy slope. There's a bridge over there, you can cross the river and then go to the woods. Qi Changgong's gaze drifted across the river, turned in the woods, and then drifted back, landing on Shang Tannen and Feiyu on the grassy slope. The setting sun had faded, the twilight was smoky and green. Two people stood there, the bright colors of the newly cut flowers were clear, and the fragrance was wafting in the air. He stood at the back door of someone's kitchen and did not go out. After a moment, he nodded. Have you noticed the tide data of the river? I paid attention to it from the beginning. No problem. Shang Tannen walked back to the kitchen and saw that Feiyu had already set the table and chairs. He immediately greeted them warmly. Captains, please sit down. No need. Let's finish looking at the other rooms first. Qi Changgong walked out of the kitchen by himself, and his subordinates followed him out. Shang Tannen then accompanied him to the next door. Feiyu just found the vase, wiped it clean, and was about to arrange the flowers when she heard a group of people talking on the corridor outside, as if they were discussing and summarizing. They looked at it very quickly. She thought, put down the bouquet, and walked out. Qi Changgong glanced at her and continued, there's basically no problem inside. Don't you have a protective shield installed at home? I have applied for it in the system. But it is said that we have to wait until all the houses of other families are built before we can send someone to install it, so we don't have it yet. Qi Changgong nodded and raised his chin to the subordinates next to him. The subordinates understood, and several people immediately walked outside. We will help you install it, and you can activate the protective shield tonight, Qi Changgong said to Shang Tannen. Thank you very much, Shang Tannen said hurriedly. Is it temporary or permanent? Feiyu saw that both Qi Changgong and Shang Tannen were looking at her, so she clarified the problem. Do you want us to tear it down tomorrow? I can't do it. She estimated that Shang Tannen would have a hard time doing it alone, so their return to Shilin for work tomorrow might be delayed for a while. Permanent. You can notify the Home Protective Shield installation team that they won't have to install yours next time, Qi Changgong said in a stern voice. That would be great. However, when Feiyu faced Qi Changgong, historical experience told her that things had to be sorted out on the spot. Excuse me, she called to Qi Changgong as he was about to leave, is the quality of this the same as the protective shield that the material system will give me later? Same. Qi Changgong's jaw muscles seemed to tense a little. Feiyu was relieved. She was a perfectionist, and this house could be said to be one of her most laborious works in her life. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it started from scratch, bit by bit. Just talking about the whole house protective shield, during the recent period when supplies were becoming scarce, the relocation project team discussed it several times before resolutely and generously equipping every household in the new settlement with one. She waited a long time just for the results of the discussion to perfectly match her design sketch. Therefore, she could not tolerate any unexpected incidents at the almost finishing stage, leaving this detail incomplete. Thank you, she nodded, politely expressing her gratitude. Thank you, Shang Tannen added, his smile noticeably more enthusiastic. Qi Changgong's eyes swept over the two of them, and he said in a deep voice, if anything happens tonight, please contact us at any time. While the guard sergeant taught Feiyu and Shang Tannen how to use the newly installed protective shield, Qi Changgong remained silent. He stood slightly away, casually examining the staircase, walls, and other parts of the house. After everything was done, he and his subordinates took off into the air. Looking down, the host smiled and waved. The hostess looked up, the lovely couple leaning against each other in the twilight, leading their new home. The lights in the back courtyard had already come on, illuminating the riverside. He knew that was the kitchen with a brand new dining table and 2 plates. The vast fertile fields were filled with the air of fireworks. The armored vehicles of the guards disappeared into the eastern sky. Feiyu averted her gaze. Let's go. Yeah, Shang Tannen nodded and smiled. The guys are all good people, she said sincerely. They had pre-installed a protective shield for her family, and they didn't even ask her to go inside and rest. Of course, except for Qi Changgong. Shang Tannen pursed his lips and hummed again. The two of them went back inside. He asked, do you want to raise the shield now? No. Feiyu stopped in the courtyard in surprise, her neck tilted up. Tannen, look, in the sky, sparse stars began to light up. Chapter 299, Happy. We'll raise the shield before we go to sleep. After dinner, we can enjoy the night sky and get a feel for the nighttime conditions of our new house's facilities. Feiyu quickly calculated and made arrangements. Now, it's dinner time. I'll go to the kitchen to prepare, and you go check the doors and windows. I'll help you prepare. Feiyu started to head to the kitchen, but stopped when she heard the sound. She said in surprise, "What do you think dinner is?" "A lot of dishes." She stared at Shang Tanin and shook her head seriously. "No, just 2 nutrient supplements." Shang Tanin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He couldn't follow Feiyu's dry humor. "I just picked a simpler job." Feiyu raised her eyebrows slightly. "Arranging nutrient supplements is easier than checking doors and windows." Shang Tanin suddenly laughed and turned around and said, "Okay, I'll go check the doors and windows." As the sky turned a deeper blue in the night, Shang Tanin's new house closed the front and back doors, the upstairs and downstairs windows, leaving only the light in the kitchen at the back. The robotic and manual cooking counters on the side were not divided into main and secondary areas like the standard style built by the WoW construction team for other people's homes, but were the same size. This was what Shang Tanin and Feiyu had decided on at the beginning of the design. As a professional in scene design, Feiyu might not always cook by herself in the future, but she needed more space at home to practice. Now, both the robotic and manual cooking counters are brand new. Under the illumination of the yellow dining lights, the countertops and the utensils placed on them all shine with a shiny silver light. The cooking utensils are not complete, and there are still many items missing. They are still waiting in the material application system, but they have all been reviewed and are waiting for distribution. The storage grid near the back door was not retracted into the wall in time. Feiyu had previously opened this area and stared at it, imagining what it would look like with a neighbor's basket placed on it. Later, she went to the backyard to pick flowers, and Shang Tanin casually placed the small flower cuts on it. Feiyu had already placed a bunch of grass roses, untrimmed, in a vase. The vase wasn't really a vase, but rather dirt cleared from houses built on the WoW plain. The resettlement project team had collected some of the dirt and given it to the creative craftspeople in the logistics department, who meticulously blended it to create a batch of ecological clay pots in a variety of shapes. Each household in the new settlement received 2 as souvenirs, each engraved with the auspicious words and the householder's name. Feiyu had chosen a pair of bowls with plump bellies, wide necks, and inverted mouths. She was thinking that if Shang Tanin continued to bring back candy from the Mulala market every month, they would have a large container for it. Since they hadn't moved yet, the remaining candy hadn't been moved yet, so she'd start arranging flowers today. Grass roses, also known as multicolored flowers, come in a variety of colors. Feiyu had spotted a vibrant clump of vibrant flowers on the grassy slope by the river that day, and it didn't block the road, so she decided to leave them there. Unexpectedly, by summer, they had grown more and more unrestrained, becoming half a flower hedge. Feiyu hadn't even bothered to pick them up, as the house wasn't even finished tidying up yet. Shang Tanin was even more sympathetic. After checking that they weren't poisonous, he said they looked pretty nice just the way they were. He even watered them twice in a clay pot. Feiyu saw that he liked them, so she picked a handful and let him enjoy a close-up look at them during dinner. Originally, in the housekeeping course, table flower arrangement was a skill that Feiyu had specialized in. The vase was placed in the center of the dining table. She had adjusted this new table to its longest setting. Although it wasn't as big as the table in the large dining room at Mo Meng's house, it was more than enough for Shang Tanin and her in the kitchen of the new house, and it was much more formal than the small side table by the west window in the dome house. This was a proper dining table. Even if couples like Fang Situ and Hu Jing, who were close friends of theirs, came to visit, it wouldn't be impolite to entertain them at this table. Feiyu thought to herself that she had a larger and more formal dining table hidden in the main hall, and she would have enough preparations for a big banquet. These days, Feiyu would go over the corresponding facilities of the new house in her mind whenever she had the chance. She evaluated the dining table and didn't miss anything. In the process, she couldn't help but compare it with the old house in Mamang where she grew up. The homesickness that was evoked passed through her heart lightly, but she took it back well. Now is her time to prosper in Luoyang, and it is not time for her to return home in glory. The new kitchen is very good. Except for being too new and a little empty, it is already very good. Do you want to eat? She looked across at the colorful bouquet of straw roses. Shang Tanin was sitting at the other end. Look, the atmosphere for a formal meal is there. For some reason, Shang Tanin bit his lip and smiled. Eat, he was still smiling. Feiyu glanced at him, picked up the nutritional supplement from the plate, and before putting it to her mouth, she said, "You look very happy. A little. Shang Tannen half lowered his head, raised his hand to cough, then looked up again with a brighter smile. Yes. Well, let's eat. Feiyu understood his happiness. Although the two of them hadn't planned to move in so soon, the situation had changed today, and they had to stay overnight as a temporary measure. Hey, finding that almost everything was available, wouldn't it be nice? The large dining table now seemed spacious and comfortable, but the old habit of discussing matters together at the small side table by the west window remained. Feiyu took a sip of her nutritional supplement and looked over the bouquet. That large curtain over our bed will be useless if we take it down. I'd like to modify it and put it over the kitchen window. Is that okay? Okay, Shang Tannen said, turning to look at the window. The new house's night window mode was set to transparent by default. He could see the grassy slope, half illuminated by the light, the other half in the night. Beyond, the Huangji River shimmered with starlight. Feiyu was always accustomed to matching curtains on the windows. He had noticed this when he arrived in the east. It's all up to you, he said with a smile. Feiyu nodded and put the curtain modification work on her to-do list. Dinner was quickly over. And discussing household matters across the long table seemed inconvenient, so Feiyu stood up. Shang Tannen and she collected the plates together, and adjusted the other lengths of the dining table together. Finally, they cleared the table, turned off the kitchen lights, and locked the kitchen door. Only pure starlight remained on the skylight of the atrium. The surroundings were quiet, and if you listened carefully, you could hear some natural sounds. The pink and gray walls were dim in the dusk, but now they were bright and clear. Feiyu tilted her head and saw a crescent moon rising in the sky, and Bada was still below the ground line. This place is so beautiful. She leaned on the bluestone under the porch and commented sincerely, Tannen, we chose a good place. Yes, it's really good place. Shang Tannen also looked up at the starry sky. Feiyu glanced over, and he seemed to have sensed something and looked sideways, with smiles in their eyes. At this moment, Feiyu felt that the two of them were like a pair of people standing in front of a random plate, waiting for a lucky gift. The result was settled, and they finally felt happy. The two of them sat on the courtyard veranda, chatting about some small matters. For a long while, neither spoke, quietly immersing themselves in the night and admiring the stars. It felt so comfortable just like that. There's nothing more comforting than sitting on your own turf, with a full belly, a stable roof, a gentle breeze, and watching the stars move in peace. Chapter 300, Deep Night. The rooms upstairs were not usable yet. But Shang Tannen was meticulous. Lately, he and Feiyu had been coming to the new house frequently to clean and arrange things. 2 sleeping bags were always kept in the field car, in case they were tired and needed to rest at home, or in case of any other unexpected situation in the field. Tonight was exactly when they needed them. They chose to spend the night in the small hall of the main building. This was a room next to the entrance hall. If the sliding doors on both sides were not used and the outer walls were changed, it could be transformed into a landscape corridor. When 3 or 4 friends came, they could have a drink here and look out at the vast plains ahead. Shang Tannen opened all the sliding doors, and the outer walls blocked the light, turning it into a cozy little room. Although it was small, it was larger than their dome house in Qinggayan community. Feiyu pushed out the benches on both sides and caught a glimpse of Shang Tannen placing her light gray sleeping bag on the inner bench and walking towards the bench on the outer wall with his own dark gray sleeping bag. Oh, he had chosen a spot. She said no more and opened her sleeping bag. Look how smart she is. The maximum width of all the built-in shelves and benches in the new house can definitely accommodate a single sleeping bag. No one will have to sleep on the floor in the future if anything happens. Tannen, Chun Yuan's Heo doesn't seem to be as busy as before, she chatted while stroking the corners of the sleeping bag. Huh? Shang Tannen turned her head. I heard Hua Jing say a few days ago that Chun Yuan's Heo visited her home and drank tea from Hua Jing's hometown. Shang Tannen chuckled, put the sleeping bag in order, sat on the bench first, and looked at Feiyu on the opposite wall. He ate up all the tea from the Sita family. No. I mean, Feiyu turned her head away, not knowing how to put it for a moment, and pointed her finger in a circle. I mean, Chun Yuan's Heo is freer than before. Shilin Hospital will pay attention to the health data of each of us, right? Shang Tannen glanced at her, obviously understanding what she meant. He smiled. This time, I wrote the property management system for the house. I know, Feiyu muttered softly. The property management channels in the neighbor's new house, which was contracted to the WoW construction team, were all managed by the construction team. Her family hired Gu Huaisi, who personally participated in every step of the construction and did everything he could himself. She was just psychologically traumatized by the bed in the dome. And every time she did something for the first time, such as field work or staying overnight in the wild, she always felt that she was being closely watched. Tonight, she and Shang Tanin stayed in Wow. They were the first family to stay overnight in the second human settlement opened up by the Luoyang landing personnel. She was afraid Chun Yuan's Heo would be interested. To be honest, if she were the one in charge of the health plan for the entire Luoyang, she would also have to pay attention to those who spent the night in a new environment. Go to sleep, Shang Tanin said. Feiyu glanced at him again. Shang Tanin seemed to be doing everything slowly and methodically, so she put his thoughts aside. Yet, then they turned off the lights, settled themselves, and said goodnight. It was the first night in their new home. And the feeling was fresh. Feiyu couldn't fall asleep immediately. She kept her eyes open, quietly taking in the new environment. The middle of the small hall was currently empty. She and Shang Tanin were each leaning against a wall. This distance was much wider than the cramped dome. The breathing between the bed and the floor, which she had heard so well last night, was suddenly far away. It took a few minutes, when it was extremely quiet, for her to slowly find it. The bench was hard, just wide enough to place the sleeping bag, but she still had to be careful when turning over. Be careful not to fall, a voice came from the darkness. That's what I was going to say, she replied. The other party smiled and said goodnight again. Feiyu felt a little sorry. She had decided the height of the bench, and she should have designed it lower. It would be harder to sit on it if it was lower, she thought. She wouldn't sleep on the bench often, and after this temporary stopgap, they would have a proper bedroom. Never mind, that's all. These trivial thoughts turned in her mind, and the fatigue after a busy day slowly spread. The small satisfaction of achieving a little bit of work also gently lingered in the joints of her bones. She relaxed, finally listened to the distant breathing, and fell asleep. The night was deep. Drop by drop, drop by drop. Feiyu suddenly opened her eyes and heard the chirping still echoing in her ears. There was another sound in the darkness, rustling twice. She turned her head and saw a figure sitting up against the opposite wall. She was not so nervous anymore. What's wrong? She saw Shang Tanin standing up, as if he was going to leave her alone, and she quickly sat up as well. Feiyu, Shang Tanin turned in the darkness. Are you awake too? The shield is sounding an alarm. It's windy outside. I'm going to go check. Let's check our surveillance first. The signal has been taken over by the shield's data channel. Now we can only see 25 meters outside the shield. It's okay. Feiyu quickly poked her communicator. The outside of the shield was pitch black, and only the grass and the night sky could be roughly distinguished. The wind warning signal kept flashing. She frowned and almost scolded Qi Changgong. The effective external surveillance in their new home was installed by Gu Huaisi when she built the house. Because she wanted to incorporate the creek and woods into the backyard, the building surveillance had a wider range. The home security shields Qi Changgong had installed had uniform regulations. They only protected or disguised the dwellings within each family's property. The shields monitored a 25-meter radius, which reached right up to the edge of Feixu's backyard lawn. The floating bridge over the Huangji River and the grove on the opposite bank were not covered. The global surveillance channel for each family's entire plot wouldn't be opened until all the relocated families in Wow had moved in. Feixu stared at the surveillance footage, quickly dismissing the area in front of the new house's main entrance. It was a flat, open space, unplanted, and prone to wind, nothing to worry about. She stared intently at the backyard, but besides the darkness, she couldn't see anything unusual. With property comes attachment. She cared about her floating bridge, her treehouse, and the woods, where she had carved out a walking path. Shang Tanin must have thought the same. Feixu, stay here. I'll go to the courtyard to check the weather. I'll go too. Their eyes met for a moment in the darkness. Come on, follow me carefully, Shang Tanin agreed. In fact, he didn't dare to leave Feiyu alone in the room. Turn on the lights, Feiyu asked softly. No, Shang Tanin stretched out his hand. I'll hold your hand. I can see even if you don't hold me, Feiyu muttered, her hand still in Shang Tanin's. The two of them held hands and didn't get separated. God knows, she felt a little ridiculous when she came up with this idea. This is her own home. She can describe every inch of it in the smallest details. How could she get separated in her own home? It's very dark without turning on the lights. She glanced at Shuang Tian'an from the corner of her eyes. He was nervous, otherwise he wouldn't have said not to turn on the lights and would rather walk in the dark. Feiyu, stand here and don't move. I'll go outside and take a look. Shuang Tian'an let go of his hand and wanted to walk out of the main building and go to the courtyard. I'll go too, Feiyu followed. There is no way to push Feiyu back with just one push. Shuang Tian'an paused and pulled her along again. Then let's go together. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.